just think something's going to click. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it's going to come from. It can't be forced. But something's going to happen at some point, and it's going to click, and we're going to go.
2-0 pitch hit high in the air towards center. Perkins going back. He's on the warning track, takes a peek, at the wall, brings it back. Both runners will tag, and the Cardinals have him second and third. Nootbaar almost hit it onto the berm.
What I'm about to say is going to make people mad, but it's really about just being patient. These guys know what they're doing. They know how to do it. To your point, their resumes are spectacular. So in time, we think it's going to work out.
The pitch is cut on a miss. Sonny Gray has a double-digit strikeout performance through 5 innings today.
You know, when our pitchers are only giving 1 run or something like that, we got to find a way to win this ball game.
To first base, Owen Miller's got it, takes it to the bag, and the Brewers have swept the Cardinals in St. Louis. A 2-0 shutout on Sunday afternoon.
There's some frustration, there's no doubt about it, but when you think about how we've played and to really only be a few games under 500 at this point is pretty remarkable, and it says a lot about our pitching, really.
That's what it sounded like over the weekend. Bally Sports Midwest and Bally Sports Wisconsin on the highlights alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. Things didn't go according to plan, to say the least. Swept at home over the weekend by the Milwaukee Brewers. Game 1, offense stinks. Game 3, offense stinks. Game 2, oh boy, yikes. We'll get to Miles Mikolas here in just a little bit. Alex, I don't even know what to say anymore, man. It is the same conversation over and over and over again so far this year. Your pitching's mostly been pretty good. Bullpen's been pretty great, honestly. Bullpen has been one of the best in the National League. Defense has been solid, base running. You've had your moments here and there, as every team does, but generally speaking, pretty decent so far this year. The problem for the St. Louis Cardinals in 2024 has been, will be, is the offense. And I don't know what to do with it, man. I don't know. Because the answer should be internal. Last year, we could talk until we were blue in the face about what Mo should have done, what the answers should have been, and how he missed the boat by not adding pitching. I don't think there were answers in the offseason for this problem that is currently plaguing the 2024 St. Louis Cardinals. You weren't getting rid of Paul Goldschmidt. That's not a reasonable thing to request of this team if you wanted them to win this year, which I think the majority of our listeners did. It's not a reasonable request to say they shouldn't have counted on Jordan Walker to be an everyday player in their lineup. Of course they should have. He was a really good player last year for them offensively, and he's improved defensively. So, yeah, I would have expected him to be better. It's not a reasonable request to say that Nolan Gorman shouldn't have been a part of their everyday plan going into this season. And yet, all of those guys that I just mentioned have been terrible offensively to start out the year. I can add in my guy, Brendan Donovan, who's going through a slump right now. Now, his slump looks a little different because at least he takes his walks and he gets hit by pitches and he does everything else the quote-unquote right way. But, man, this is brutal. Right now, they have gone 8 straight games, which is 280 at-bats without a home run. 5 straight games with 6 or fewer hits. They have the second fewest home runs so far. The fewest home runs so far in the National League. Arenado, Goldie, and Walker have combined for 2 on the season. Alex, what do you make of this offense?
Well, first of all, can we just appreciate the boldness of John Mozeliak speaking of this and just pulling up the phrase, you got to be patient.
I like it. T-shirts on sale.
That's some massive cojones by Mo just to pull that one out of the old cupboard. But look, what it feels like right now is the Cardinals don't have anybody who they can look at and rely on to come up with the big hit. So it's causing everybody else to tighten the grip and start swinging as hard as they can. Like, it feels like everybody right now is taking out their frustrations because nobody is hitting. And to me, that is just a tough spot to be in when every single batter steps up to the plate and you're expecting some type of strikeout. The number for me, and I saw it in Katie Woo's piece, the number for me that is very, very alarming, and it's been this way all season, is the runners in scoring position. 2 for 22 against Milwaukee, and you left 31 runners on base. Like, that to me tells me right now you don't have that big game hitter.
See, I've heard a lot of that not to push back too much against you, Alex. Like, what did you say they're hitting right now with runners
day
in
that
scoring
ends with
position?
fly without you doing that.
No, I think it's instructive. What did you say they're hitting with runners in scoring position?
Just in this Milwaukee Brewers series, they went 2 for 22 and they stranded 31 runners.
Okay, I'll have to look up what it is on the season. Give me 1 sec. I can go down, carry
we
the
did this last week and it wasn't pretty.
Drop the 2. I mean, it's not good. Don't get me wrong.
Drop the 2.
They're batting 201. 201 with runners in scoring position so far this year. Do you guys know what they're hitting in any situation? Just forget it. Runner scoring, runner on, any situation as a team.
220.
They're batting 219. Yes. They're not hitting.
Well, fine, but you're getting guys on base and you're putting them. You're getting 31 runners on.
They have an on-base percentage this season of 301.
31 runners in 3 games.
Yeah, it's not. They're not doing a good enough job overall of getting these guys on base, man.
I get it, but my concern, although they're not hitting together, when they are getting guys in scoring position, 22 guys in scoring position,
they're not hitting power, man. That's their problem. They're not hitting the ball hard. And it doesn't matter if there's runners on. It doesn't matter if there's 2 outs, 1 out, no out, 1 strike, 2 strike. It doesn't matter the situation right now. They stink. They get to the plate and they're bad. So yes, you're right, Alex. The runners in scoring position numbers right now are awful. They are so bad and they've got to be better. But you know what else helps? Hitting a home run with nobody on. It scores a run. Guaranteed run the moment that you do it. You know how long it's been since they've done it? 8 consecutive games that they have not hit a singular home run. So yeah, you're right. The situational hitting, it's got to be better. I think they've actually been pretty good though this year. And I'm not saying like the hitting has to improve. They've been really good with like sac flies and bunting guys over and the small ball stuff that we yelled at them from start to finish about last season. This year, their problem is they're just not hitting ever. In previous seasons, they would hit when there were no runners on, Alex, and then we would get mad at them for not getting the big hit. Right now, they just ain't hitting. So I don't know what you're supposed to do in that scenario if you're Ollie Marmol. Like, he moved Goldie down the lineup yesterday. He moved Gorman down in the lineup yesterday. He took Walker out of the lineup. And you know what the result was? 0 runs. 0 runs against a guy that is a super mediocre pitcher. They couldn't hit with runners in scoring position. They couldn't hit without runners in scoring position. They were just bad. So what do we do? How am I supposed to evaluate it when Jordan Walker, I think, is going to hit? I think Goldie should hit. I'm growing more pessimistic by the day. I'm pretty confident Gorman's eventually going to hit for power. I don't think it's going to be a lot of average. So what do we do here, Alex? How do we evaluate this team right now? In the meantime, when the truth is, like, it's just about waiting until that happens.
Yeah, that's what Mo just told you. You got to be patient. And I don't know how long patience is going to matter for this team because, as we've talked about last year, you put yourself in a bad spot and it down spirals. And if you can't get out of it, the difference right now is at least you've got the pitching. But this is a snowball that I'm not sure one guy is going to stop for the Cardinals. This is going to be a snowball that you're going to have to get 3 or 4 guys out of this slump, and that's a lot to ask right now, especially with, I know, beyond the Arizona Diamondbacks, you've got the White Sox, so hopefully that'll be the opportunity you can bust through. But, I mean, you might be talking about 3 more games where we're having this exact same conversation.
Play right now. I don't think it's about the opponent.
We could hit the White Sox, right?
I mean, I thought they could hit the A's.
That's mediocre team. No.
They didn't get a single home run against the A's.
That's a big ball. You know, the cold air in California.
Yeah.
Here, I don't know.
I'm genuinely not even being critical of the team right now because I'm flabbergasted by this.
Yeah.
If you told me at this point in the season that the Cardinals starting pitching would be pretty good and Sonny Gray would look every bit as good as advertised, and hot damn did he look amazing yesterday. It's really fun to watch him in person, by the way, worth the price of admission. The bullpen would be amazing. The defense would be vastly improved from what it was a year ago. If you told me all of that, BK, what's their record through the first 22 games? I'd be like 14-8, probably. Maybe something went awry, like baseball happens and it's weird and like the sequencing wasn't right there. 13-9, maybe worst case scenario, like 12-10. For them to be 4 games under 500 with all of those things that I just mentioned in their favor is shocking to me. I am shocked that this offense is this bad. Alex, you've been the low man, and I know you're frustrated with me right now, and that's okay.
It's good to be back and see that the dynamic hasn't changed.
We're pushing back on something that didn't need to be pushed back on.
I mean, it did. They're not hitting in any scenario, but whatever.
Or with runners on.
Alex, are you surprised at all about what we're witnessing right now.
I mean, yeah, I don't know how you couldn't be surprised by this. You're not just talking about 3 guys that aren't hitting. You're talking about nearly 200 batting average for Donovan, for less than 200 for Paul Goldschmidt. You're talking less than 250 for Lars Nootbaar. Like, yeah, I don't understand how you couldn't be surprised by this. The problem that I just kind of find myself as, yeah, it's par for the course with this team, is this is what always seems to happen, where one thing might look great. Last year it was the offense. After the Blue Jays series, it was, Kevin Gossman was talking about how you can't get through this damn lineup, and then all of a sudden the pitching sucked.
He'd love to pitch against us this year.
I don't blame him. Frankly, everybody should be looking forward to it right now. Not just in runners in scoring position, though, in all scenarios for this Cardinals team. But, like, where they're at, This is par for the course. It's the beginning of the season. Pitching looks great. Everybody is surprised by it, but there's something else that's bad. And this is the snowball that I was talking about. When you're in this rut, I don't think one person's going to pull you out of this.
I'm genuinely shocked because I don't know if I've ever seen a team go through where everybody goes through the cold streak at the same time. And, like, I'm not sure Goldie's bouncing out of this. I'm not sure Walker's bouncing out of this, especially with that hip that leaks all the time. But Donovan, I feel like, will bounce out of it. Nootbaar, I think, will bounce out of it. Arenado, I think you've seen signs that he's basically back to what he is. He's not hitting for as much power as you'd like, but he seems to be back to where he should be. Everybody that has struggled this season is all struggling at the same time. The guys that have to get it figured out that you just have no confidence in at all are Paul Goldschmidt and Jordan Walker. Those are the guys that have to start showing signs of life. Those guys look awful right now. And I know Walker didn't have the pressure of being like a 4-hole hitter coming into the season, and he's on the verge of going down. That's how bad Jordan Walker's been. Paul Goldschmidt looks like Adam Wainwright from last year, but the position player side of it. Like, they've got to start showing signs of life. And the fact that they've gone all cold through a scenario, yeah, I don't blame the front office for what's happened so far. I don't blame the manager for what's happened so far. I don't blame the hitting coach for what's happened so far. This is a player's issue, and they've got to figure out their ish, or the season will spiral, like Alex said.
I cannot agree with that enough. I have heard so much over the last couple of days of, why aren't you guys holding Ollie accountable and ask the tough questions, and why aren't they firing the hitting coach? Man, this is not about a hitting coach. They've gone through 20 of them over the last 7 years. We've seen them try to work through this stuff, whether it's offensively or with the pitching or what. It's the players, dude. At some point, the players have to come through. Goldie's really going through it right now. And I don't know what the fix is for him. I don't know if the fix can be made in the big leagues for Jordan Walker. But, like, if the player development system was just trash and it was terrible for everybody, wouldn't you think Mason Wynn would be struggling more than he is so far this year? He's not. And the reason why is because, like, he's got a swing on track. A lot of guys right now are not feeling very good about where they're at offensively, and that takes time. And that's a horrible thing for me to say on the radio. It does not give you anything that you can, like, latch on to, and I get it. I promise you, like, it doesn't sound like I'm as mad as you are. I hate watching this team right now. It is not fun to watch this team play baseball, but they could have so much bigger issues. Like, if the pitching was going awry right now, I would be screaming from the mountaintops that the Cardinals missed the boat, and this is on them. I don't know. There's nothing Mo could have done to fix this, in my opinion. There's nothing, in my opinion, that Ollie can do right now to, like, have a magical elixir and put the pixie dust on his players and be like, haha, everything is fixed. The batting order was changed yesterday. He moved some guys around. Victor Scott is down in AAA. Walker was out of the lineup, and nothing changed. It was the same issues once again. Now it's one game. Hopefully that changes maybe later on today. This is brutal, man. It's tough to watch. And so the next question that I want to ask, and 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. The mic drop feature is on the 101 ESPN app. You can also check us out over on YouTube at youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. Is this going to be different than last year? They got the same record through 22 games this year.
About to go down.
As they did through 22 games last year. They are about to go on a road trip later on this week against New York and Detroit. Last year at this time, they went through that dreaded West Coast road trip that ended their season. Is this going to be the same story with a different plot line as it was last year? We'll talk about that, get Alex's thoughts on it. Hopefully we'll be in good moods coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friend and insurance agent Tracy Bibb, her and her team at Allstate, making sure they're saving people money when it comes to their car insurance. And Tracy, we talk all the time about making sure you're with the right insurance agent, but people that might have a previous one, they might not know how easy it is to switch over to Tracy Bibb. So walk us through the process.
Yeah, absolutely. It's super easy. We will work with you on your terms. So say, for instance, you'd rather email us and do everything via email. We will do that. If you want to text us and do everything via text, we will do that. If it's simpler to call us, then you can give us a call and we will help you that way. But absolutely a perfect time to give us a call, email us, text us to see what we can do about your insurance, because there are so many changes happening in the insurance world right now. It's really shook up. If you wanted to, you could go to my Facebook page and see some of the changes that are happening. I talk about it all the time. But perfect time, and if you've got a new roof, even better time to give us a call and see what we can do.
Especially in the springtime when you get all that crazy weather, make sure you get with the right insurance agent. You heard Tracy say they're always available for you. 314-328-4260. Just tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the Bibb. Tracy, thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Go St. Louis City.
All right, so the Cardinals have the same record through the first 22 games of this season as they did at this point last year. And so the question that is natural to ask, is it going to be the same thing as last year? Now, it's for different reasons, right? Last year, the pitching was abysmal at this point in the season. And we all knew, like, dude, if this doesn't get turned around, I don't think it's going to happen. I remember talking to, who was it? Osmus, about around this time last year. And we were like, hey, you guys had in 2004, I want to say it was, 05 maybe, the Houston Astros, a terrible start to the season, similar to what the Cardinals were going through at that point. Do you think the Cardinals have it in them? He's like, yeah, they've got the pitching. And we all looked around the room and we're like, do they? Do the Cardinals have the pitching?
Brad was watching the wrong team last year.
They had the offense, but they didn't have defense and they didn't have pitching at all. And I'm talking bullpen or starting rotation. This year it's very different. This year I think the rotation has been mostly pretty good and the bullpen has been lights out. Defense has been significantly better. So they're at the same place for very different reasons. This time around, it's the offense, whether it's with runners in scoring position, to Alex's point, or anytime, and to my point, the offense is just not coming through in any meaningful way. And so, Alex, text line at 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line, and the mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. Do you think we're headed for the same results? Is this going to be another lost season for different reasons?
No, I don't think so. And I hate to be the optimistic one with this right now because everybody's probably in
Make you live longer,
pessimistic mindset. That's what Schilt told me. But I don't see them going on a streak where they're going to lose 11 of their next 12 games because I don't think your pitching is that bad. And I also don't believe that this team is going to go on a 12-game streak where they're scoring 2 or 3 runs. I have to imagine that the bats break out of this slump at some point. Like I'm looking through that stretch from April 22nd on, and I'm looking at games where they've gave up 7 runs, 5 runs, 6 runs, 5 runs, 6 runs, 11 runs. I just don't see that happening.
God, they were bad.
They were bad. Like they were bad. Like I'm looking at losses from their bullpen. I'm looking at losses from their starters. Guys, I don't even remember that were on the freaking roster. So I don't think we're going into that same spot. But I also don't see this thing turning around for a positive. I don't see this team going on an 11-game win streak and putting themselves in a winning situation. I see this team being a middling team. I see this team exactly what they are right now, to where get some great starts, but your offense falls flat, and then you're up and down for the next couple of months. That's where I thought this team was going to be.
Yeah, I'm very much in line with Alex here. I don't think the floor is going to fall out from this team because at least you're always going to have, as long as he stays healthy, Sonny Gray, that's going to be a stopper. He should have won that game yesterday with his 12 strikeouts. So you're always going to have that guy. Last year, they never had a guy that they could just lean on and say, hey, go out there, take the ball, and shove for 6 innings and give us a chance. And I also think with their pitching, I think any team that has pitching that buys the offense a chance is like a good defense in football. You know, where the offense right now, currently in a rut, we saw this with like the Kansas City Chiefs all last season. Their defense kept them in games. Cardinals pitching's keeping them in games. And at some point, a lot of these offensive figures, as Alex had mentioned, are going to break out of their funks. I believe in Brendan Donovan. I think Gorman is going to start hitting for power. You know, you got Contreras hitting already, and you got Mason Wynn hitting already. Like at some point, some of these guys are going to break out of these struggles. Goldie Walker, I'm a little more concerned about, but even then, I expect them to at some point go through like a 7-game stretch where they end up hitting for like 450 average or something crazy like that. So, I don't think the floor will fall out from this team. But to Alex's point, I do think they're a middling team. I think they are a 80 to 85 win team still to this day. So, but I don't think they're a, whatever they finished last year, 70 win team. They're a little bit better than that. And because they actually have pitching this year and the rotation's going deeper, which isn't wearing down the bullpen, it's going to allow for the pitching to kind of sustain at a level that keeps them afloat.
So I was a little surprised to see this. At this point last year, bullpen ERA was actually good. It did not break yet. But can I give you the difference in starting pitching ERA right now compared to this point last year? Starting pitching ERA right now is 4.2 for the Cardinals. It's fine. It's not great, but it's fine.
Thanks a lot, Gibby.
Oh, we weren't going to say names.
Sorry.
Starting pitching ERA last year, 5.6.
Oh, God.
5.6 ERA at this point a year ago. To give context to that, Kyle Gibson's ERA, who Alex said is the problem for this staff, has a 5 right now this year. So the Cardinals' entire staff last year as a whole was worse than what Kyle Gibson has been on average for you so far this season. It was so bad. And you just never had a chance. And there was no reason to believe at this point last year that it was going to get better. Because the names in the rotation, you were like, so I'm supposed to believe in this? And that's why I think it will be different this time around. And I know it's hard for me to stand up here as this team is going through such a terrible rut. And I've been the guy that has been telling you now for 3 years, hey, it's 2013 offense, or in Alex's opinion, the 2004 offense all over again. I understand. I'm the boy that cried wolf in this regard. But, man, you look at the names in this lineup, they just can't be this bad. I don't believe it. I refuse. Paul Goldschmidt is not suddenly going to be one of the worst hitters in Major League Baseball, which is what he's been so far this season, with an OPS of 505 and a batting average that is below his weight. It's below my weight, which is not good for him right now, given where he's at offensively.
Right on track where I'm at.
Nolan Gorman also... his batting average also below my current weight. Hell, his on-base percentage is probably below Paul Goldschmidt's weight. That's not what you want. None of them are hitting for any power. Slugging percentages right now. Arenado below 400. Brendan Donovan 350. Paul Goldschmidt slugging percentage 218. Nolan Gorman 325. Jordan Walker 275. Alec Burleson 275. Lars Nootbaar 415. I mean, these are bad slugging percentages, dude. I think the vast majority of them will get better. And if I'm right, this team's still going to win like 85 games. Given what your pitching is, given what your defense is, given what they've done so far this year with small ball as well. So I think it is there. The question is, how long does it take to get there? Because there will come a point in time in which they just lose all confidence in themselves because of how far back they are if the offense doesn't start hitting at least a little bit in the next week or two.
Well, and that should be a bigger concern right now, because I think we said this a lot about the Blues last year. I think we're seeing that this team as a whole is very fragile, because, I mean, we're going back to the Diamondback series when you hit the last home run, and in that stretch you've hit more than 3 runs in a game, or scored more than 3 runs in a game once.
Yeah.
To me, when you get a fragile group, that's where the snowball can be a realistic threat. And the whole thing that they tried to tell us on this offseason was, we're bringing in the veterans so that they can make the room a little lighter and they can help guys through these ups and downs and keep the room fresh. We talked earlier, like, what can a manager do? I don't believe there's anything a manager can do, because I do think this is a player problem, but there does need to be some soul searching right now about how not to be this fragile of a team. Everybody goes through this, but if you go through this for another 3 games and we're talking about winning or losing 6 of 7 or maybe 7 straight, that to me tells me that you're way too fragile of a group and you need to figure out how to get out of it, or you need to get guys who bring confidence to a group.
Yeah,
but it's too late for that. That's the thing, is like, this is your group. For anybody wanting them to make a trade right now, there is nothing out there right now,
and you can't
to be able to move.
And you can't make a trade to bring confidence to a group.
No,
that's not going to do
anything.
anything.
That's what Matt Carpenter's here for. He's a paid friend.
And
that's
Brandon
what Brandon
Crawford.
Crawford's here. He's a paid friend. Like,
do your
that's
job, guys. Come on.
I don't think the vibes are bad in this clubhouse. In fact, I asked yesterday Wilson Contreras this question, Jeff Jones asked this question of him. Will this be a repeat of 2023? Here's what Wilson Contreras had to say to that question.
I think it's different because, first of all, we have good chemistry. I think the chemistry and relationship that we have right now, this year, it wasn't there last year. The pitching staff is doing a great job. A few days ago, we lost by a lot of runs. It's going to happen. But I think we pounded this one a lot better than last year. We executed a lot better with 2 strikes than last year. And we just as a team, we just hasn't been able to hit. I think when it comes around, it's gonna be a good team.
I mean, I believe him, because he was the one that had the tracks on his back as the team continuously.
Well, why he feels different.
Right now, he was basically told he's an outfielder.
I think the vibes, I was down there in the clubhouse yesterday, I think the vibes are fine on this team, man. It doesn't feel that way when you're watching the games because they're losing. It goes back to what we said last year. Like, if they were having fun while this was taking place, we'd be critical of them for having too much fun while they're losing and not caring enough. Like, they shouldn't look like they're having fun right now. I think the personalities mesh better this time around than it did at this point last year. I think the team is better, honestly, more well-rounded than it was at this point last year. I do not other than them happening in consecutive seasons, I honestly don't think there are a whole lot of similarities between the 2023 Cardinals and the 2024 Cardinals. They could have similar results at the end of the day, but I don't think the teams are all that similar at all. It just comes down to, like, what's your level of faith in this offense? And I'm going to continue to be the guy that believes in Arenado and Goldie and Walker and Newt and Donovan and Gorman. I think that's eventually going to work. But hot damn, does it look bad so far this year. And I have very little to be able to grasp onto to believe that.
Yeah,
other than blind faith.
Yeah.
Hey, man, I've been there. Did it for 6 months for the other team.
The only thing that really concerns me is Walker doesn't seem to have taken the next step. And I understand that it could be an early season frustration. I mean, if an ESPN analyst and Eduardo Perez, and I love Eduardo Perez, I think he's one of the best analysts in baseball, if he can point out a hip leaking from the third game of the season and I'm still not seeing it improved, and you're seeing it, he's rolling over everything still, and he can't hit anything that's away from him, and it's because of that hip leaking, as Eduardo Perez pointed out. And then Paul Goldschmidt coming off of, and maybe my faith in Goldie is being tied into what I saw with Waino last year, to where, hey man, when it goes, it goes. And it doesn't look better. Like, it's not looking better for Paul Goldschmidt. He looks overmatched right now.
I couldn't believe he got a hit yesterday. What was that?
A little flare into short or left center. Yeah.
Well, that's the slump buster he needed.
I could not believe that he got that hit. I thought that I thought that was a really important at bat for him, because if he didn't come through there,
he didn't come through tonight, so don't count on it. That's the only reason that I feel like, to your point, yes, these are different teams, but it is trending towards hey, this could have the same result. And the reason for that is because they put themselves out of the race early last year. Man, they're already falling behind in the NL Central. They're 6 games back. And look, I don't really believe in what Milwaukee is still. Like, I think they're last year's Pirates, where they're going to have a great first month and then kind of fall off. But the Reds seem like a really good team still, or at least a solid team that can win the Central. The Cubs feel like a solid team that can win the Central. And the Cardinals offense, if Walker has to be sent down, or Walker doesn't take the next step, and Goldie does fall off a cliff, guys, this is no longer a lineup that's deep 1 through 7. It's a lineup that's deep 1 through 5, with a streaky hitter, by the way, in that mix, in Nolan Gorman. And that's fine. That's fine that Nolan Gorman is a streaky hitter. He is going to be Kyle Schwarber. But if during those streaks that he's cold, all of a sudden it's 1 through 4, that's like the lineups you saw when Goldie and Arenado first got here, where it wasn't very deep, and it relied on those two guys. And now you have to rely on Arenado and Contreras. It's too much to ask.
You always go back to your best players. Every time you go through struggles, you always go back to your best players in every situation. And if your best players aren't your best players, then the team crumbles with it.
And we talked about this last year with the Blues. Not this season, the 2024 season, but the season prior, when O'Reilly wasn't producing and Tarasenko wasn't producing, and you had a team that was struggling. You looked at that, and for me, when Binnington wasn't quite the same version that we saw this year, it was never going to work. Like that was a foundation that was not solid to build around. And what we might be learning right now, I hope that it's not true, because it would suck for all of us that have to watch this for 162 games. What we might be learning, it's possible, hope not, is that Paul Goldschmidt wasn't a player worth building around as a foundation piece for this season. It might just be over before we could have possibly expected it to be. I think the frustration for me is I don't think there's anything they could have done to prevent that. Like, sometimes it just goes and you don't know it, and they thought they had the young players to be able to prop that up if and when it happened, and it hasn't worked. So I hope it changes. I hope it gets back on track. Cardinals back in action tonight. Lynn on the mound against Brandon Pfaadt.
Fingers crossed.
Cardinals versus the Diamondbacks here in St. Louis. All right, coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll get into questions and answers. Katie Wu joins us at the top of the hour. But next, Alex has been watching the NHL playoffs all weekend long. He has one significant takeaway and how it affects the Blues. We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN.
Tara Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals fell to the Milwaukee Brewers yesterday 2-0 as they are swept by their division foe. They are back in action tonight. 6:45 will be first pitch. Brandon Pfaadt gets the start for Arizona, and Lance Lynn will get the start for the St. Louis Cardinals. The Sports Update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
There's nothing better than Stanley Cup Playoffs, and Alex has been watching all season long alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. Alex, over the weekend, as you were watching the Islanders and the Hurricanes and then the Maple Leafs and Bruins and so on from there, yesterday a 4-game slate, what'd you learn that you could apply to the Blues as we get into the offseason?
Yeah, what I'm about to say, disregard the two Western Conference games, the Avalanche and Jets and the Predators and Canucks, because that doesn't apply to what I'm about to say right now.
Okay.
But I've learned in the 4 Eastern Conference games that defense is going to be the area the Blues must improve this offseason. I'm specifically that Carolina Hurricanes game and then the Bruins and Maple Leafs. To me, those are the 4 teams that I'm most interested in the Eastern Conference, because I think those 3 of the 4, I don't really think the Islanders got a chance, but those are the 3 teams that I'd be curious if they get a chance at winning the Stanley Cup this year. But watching Carolina play against New York, but more specifically Boston playing Toronto, and we all know Toronto's got this high-powered offense everybody's excited about. Boston's defenseman and goaltender, but I'll argue just the defense in general, they shut down plays immediately. The moment Toronto stepped into the Boston Bruins zone, there was no cycling, there was no setup, especially in the first period. Boston killed the play immediately, and Toronto didn't know what to do. And then when I watch Winnipeg and Colorado kind of just skate around each other and score 13 goals, goaltending was just non-existent in that game. And then even really Vancouver and what they did in Nashville, specifically in the third period, this goes back to what Doug told us, BK, on Thursday when we were out there. Trends always show up in the playoffs. Size on defense was really important last year. I think that's going to be another key factor into this going into this upcoming offseason. And for the Blues, as much as I think you need another center, as much as I think as you need more scoring, I look at how Carolina plays, how Boston plays, how the Florida Panthers play. If you don't have a top 4 defense that can kill plays the moment the other team steps in the zone, I don't think you can compete. And I think that's the area they have to improve.
And I would say that the other reason why it is so critical this offseason to find that out, and really over the next couple of offseason, I don't think this is going to be a 1-year overhaul. It's going to take some time for them. You don't have the guys in the system currently that can be your top 4 defensemen in the immediate future. Mm-hmm. You have internal options for your forward group. Like when they think about what does our forward group look like in 2025 when we're contending again, it includes mostly homegrown talent, I would assume. I don't think you can say the same thing defensively, and that's why you go into this offseason and you think to yourself, okay, how can we find those players? What do we need to do to get them? Is it accumulating talent via free agency? Well, probably not. Can we trade for a guy? Maybe. Is it where we need to go into this year's draft and just continuously throw assets at, okay, who's the next guy, the next guy, the next guy, and continue to bring those guys into the system? Possibly. All of those things have to be on the table. But when you see what Boston was able to do as one significant example of that, it's really hard to ignore. The difference between what Boston is and what you are, the main one at least, is their defensive core, man.
Yep.
Their offense, while good, you look up and down that lineup, like they've got a lot of pretty good names for the most part. And then they've got, one of the best players in the league in David Pastrnak, who plays that way, and then Brad Marchand, who's been really good. Other than that, though, man, it's mostly like middle 6 guys similar to what you have currently on your roster. So I think the biggest difference between where you're at right now and where you want to be in terms of external improvements is that defensive core. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, I just I look at Boston as a really good comp to the Blues. You don't have a Pastrnak and a Marchand, but I would argue you have one star in Robert Thomas, and you hope you can find another one, whether it is Kyrou next year, Booch next year.
And to be fair, could it? Nobody's Brad Marchand in terms of everything that he brings to the table. Mm-hmm. But if you're just looking point production wise, you could make a pretty good argument that Like maybe that is what you have currently with a guy like Pavel Buchnevich.
Yeah.
No,
I think Neighbors could be that guy too. I mean, I think Neighbors could be kind of like a Brad Marchand just in terms of an ish disturber. But Boston,
and if you look points wise in the first 3 seasons that he was in the NHL, I know nobody wants to talk about this yet because it feels differently now, but early on, David Pastrnak was really similar to what Jordan Kyrou has been so far in Kyrou's career. It was 34, 35, and 38 goals in his first 3 full seasons in the NHL level.
Yeah. I watch Boston play, and like minus that top 2 guys, they don't have studs elsewhere. Like we talked a lot this off during the season and trade deadline and what they could do next year. We talk like who's their second best center, and talking about the Blues need to get the second best center for the Boston Bruins is Pavel Zacha or Morgan Geekie. Like, it's not a star-studded lineup, but what they have, and they solidified this a couple of trade deadlines ago, is you have a top 4 that doesn't allow the other team to breathe. Carlo, Lindholm, McAvoy, and Grzelcyk. They don't allow the other team to get any scoring opportunities, and I look at Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and all of these offensive players that they have that put 36 shots on goal. That's fine. But look at their high danger scoring chances. The other team doesn't allow them to get the dangerous opportunities the way that the Blues allow the dangerous opportunities.
The other difference, of course, is, Jim Montgomery, who's going to be on the Blues bench by this time next year. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. He's got one more year?
One more year.
One more year.
And maybe, I don't know how contracts work. Maybe you can just say, hey, I'm done. And
is it like
buy me
a college
out.
coach? You can just leave?
No.
Coming up next, we'll get into questions and answers. I do have one question for Alex about the Maple Leafs. Are we seeing them on the brink of having to make a significant move this offseason? Feels like we've asked that a few times. Is this time the time that it actually takes place, though? We'll do that next here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers with Alex and T-Bone on BK. Alex, let's start with this. This is my question for you. We'll get to our text line here in just a moment.
Wait, are we coming up with our own questions?
The Maple Leafs down 1-0 in the Stanley Cup Playoffs right now to the Boston Bruins. Mentioned that in the last segment. Alex, we've talked about this over the last few seasons. It feels like maybe it's coming more to a crescendo this year, where it's kind of the last run potentially. If the Maple Leafs were to be beat in the first round by Boston, what does that mean for their offseason plans, in your opinion?
I think you see it blown up a little bit. And I'll explain what I mean by blown up, but I think they're in the same conversation as Edmonton and the Carolina Hurricanes. And for those that missed it, LeBron did a one-on-one with Ken Holland and then pulled a lot of other former general managers just about Edmonton. And this is a make or break, a cup or bust run right now for the Edmonton Oilers. And I think the same can be said about the Maple Leafs and the Carolina Hurricanes, because if you're this group, you've run it back 3 straight years. Now, last year you got past the first round, but 2 years ago you lost in the first round. And then if you lose again in the first round, if you're the Maple Leafs, you've already got Matthews locked up. You've got one more year at Tavares, and I got to promise you, nobody's taking that contract for $11 million. You just signed William Nylander for $11.5 million. And then you got one more year of Mitch Marner. I don't know if they trade Mitch Marner, but you've got a ton of money tied up in like 4 or 5 different players. You've got no goaltending, and you have one good defenseman on that team. I think they get rid of Keefe. I think Brendan Shanahan might be gone. And frankly, it wouldn't surprise me if they try and move Mitch Marner to reset the table a little bit when you have those star players. Edmonton, in the piece, they talked about how both McDavid and Draisaitl might just say, screw it. We're not winning here. We need to go elsewhere, so let's move on. And then Carolina's got a ton of pending free agents. Those 3 teams, it really feels like it's cup or bust this offseason.
All right, let's get to the text line from the 314. Guys, Derek Gould just mentioned this in his chat. On April 22nd in 2022, Paul Goldschmidt was batting .195 with an OPS of .540. Does that give you more confidence that he can break out of this slump in 2024? Just as a reminder, he went on to win the MVP in 2022. Goldie, again, 196 batting average, OPS of .540 back in 2022.
I don't know if it makes me more confident because he's 2 years older now than what he was when he did that. But it's why I'm not like screaming from the mountaintops the Cardinals are bleeped because Paul Goldschmidt's struggling. Like, the dude always finds his way back to that median line of where he always is. So I don't know if it makes me more confident because that was 2 years ago. I think I'm still kind of in the same place where it's like, this does not look good. It might be because of age, but I know he's going to figure it out somewhat.
Over the next month, just for what it's worth, he went on an absolute tear. Hit .395 with an OPS of about 1,200. So if it's going to happen the way that it did that year, and I don't think he has that in him right now. But if he's going to get this thing turned around, it was right around this time in 2022 where he didn't just start hitting. He hit the ball with authority. He hit the ball to all fields. It really came together in a meaningful way.
And one reason that I have a little bit less faith in that is, one, what Alex said, he's 2 years older, which does matter. And 2, typically when Goldie would struggle like that, and maybe I'm wrong, you can't really date this on Baseball Savant like you can like Baseball Reference and find, a 30-game stretch. It would always feel like, okay, even if he's struggling, you look at the Baseball Savant page, you go, okay, there's some red there. He's hitting the ball hard. Maybe it's a little bit of bad luck. Looking at it now, it is ugly. There is a lot of blue on his page, which is not what you want, and that's one reason that I have a little bit more concern this time around.
A couple more questions from the 618. Guys, should we give Mo credit for not giving Paul Goldschmidt an extension during the offseason? Could have pigeonholed them into a lot of issues if they had done that. It's why I think we all were on board with not doing it in the offseason as well, just because of the age. Like you've seen with Miles Mikolas, for example, what it can look like on the other side. Pitching's different than hitting, but when it goes, sometimes it goes quick and it just never comes back. So do you want to give him credit? Sure. Because we would criticize if he had done it. So, yeah, he deserves a little bit of credit for that.
I'd criticize if he gave a number 2 starter that pitches to contact a 2-year contract extension.
Especially when you had another number 2 starter on your team pitching well that you could have said, hey, we want you around for the long run.
Exactly. So I'd give him credit for not extending Goldie.
Sure.
Final thing here. Guys, I asked this question to the Fast Lane. I would be curious your thoughts as well. the Cardinals as a brand, do you believe that it is still relevant because of their history? Or do you guys think that as a team, people outside of St. Louis no longer care about them?
So, like, people out of St. Louis don't care about the Cardinals.
Yes.
Because of their struggles. Yeah.
Well, they're saying as a brand, basically, is the brand of the St. Louis Cardinals
Dead.
still relevant? I think it's relevant.
I'd say no.
Yeah, I don't think it's relevant anymore.
You can't be relevant if you're not winning the playoffs, man.
And I don't know if you're relevant if you don't have a bunch of players like they used to be wanting to be in St.
And
Louis.
it's no longer like there's no longer that. Well, there still is because of the recent success, but there no longer is that hate because you're good. You know, like I don't think
Cardinal way.
I'd say since the end of 2015. They haven't been a relevant baseball team.
I actually would.
They went to the NLCS in 19. I know nobody liked that team. Nobody believed in that team, but
would you?
Sure, but outside of that 1 year and a 10-year stretch, they've been good. But even some of those years they were good. Like they got into the playoffs, a 21-game winning streak. Pujols probably brought them back some relevancy in 2022, and Goldie won an MVP. But I'd say yeah, because they just don't win in the playoffs, man.
I'm trying to think of a good comparison for it. I don't know that I have one.
I feel like they'd be more likely to fall into the category of like the butt of a lot of jokes in baseball than they would be like the target of infatuation.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. I just think baseball is like, is the Yankees brand still relevant? I would say yes. They haven't done a lot of winning though. Like their winning mirrors that of the Cardinals. So I think brands in baseball matter.
I think
in a way that it doesn't in most other sports.
Where I would push back on the Yankees is like they're in New York, like they're in the mecca center of media. You know,
they're
like
always
even if they're
bringing in more and more talent.
Whether they're a 100-loss team and they're awful like they were last year, they didn't lose 100, but they were bad last year. They're still gonna always be talked about. St. Louis, man, you fall off the radar and you don't win, nobody's going to talk about you.
I think it requires more than one terrible season, though. It was just one bad year. So if it happens again this season, I think you're on the verge of irrelevance. So I don't know. I think we disagree on this a little bit. I think that the brand still matters. I think that like when you're walking around town and even another market, you'll still see the birds on the bat. I don't think that's going. They're not the Royals, for example. Like my Royals are irrelevant nationally. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm VK. Coming up next, Katie Wu, Cardinals Insider for The Athletic.
Alongside BK, I'm Alex Ferrario. Look, I've already put down my bets for the weekend when it came to hockey, and I was unsuccessful in Circa Sports, but still had a good time. I've already put together my parlay for tonight, BK, and this is why I'm telling people to use the Circa Sports app. So a 4-leg parlay, I took the Oilers on the puck line, Golden Knights on the puck line, Hurricanes and Bruins all on the puck line. Over on DraftKings, that's sitting at plus 2,000. If I do that on my Circa Sports app, which I'm going to, it's plus 2,500. Because Circa is making sure that these big game bets that I like to put together, you're bringing in the most money possible.
Download the app today. You can do so in the state of Illinois. It's the biggest sports book in Las Vegas, and now it's at your fingertips in the state of Illinois. Again, that's Circa Sports app in Illinois. If you go over there, you're going to be getting all the greatest odds. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's always great to go out to the 101 ESPN hotline on Mondays because Katie Woo is there to be able to answer all of our questions. She's the Cardinals insider for The Athletic. She has a piece up right now over at The Athletic with her 3 takeaways from the Cardinals last week. Stars are slumping as the anemic offense continues. And that is where we begin our conversation, as we do each and every week, with Katie Woo here on BK and Ferrario. Katie, when can we expect this offense to start performing again? Like, is that a reasonable expectation at this point?
Fix it, Katie.
I'm trying my best, you guys. Yeah, today would be a good day for that, right? Today would be a good day. A season-long 4 consecutive losses, just a really uninspiring series performance against Milwaukee, and certainly some angst both from the fan base and from the team over how the offense has looked lately.
Katie, I'd say that there's a FOD chance that happens today.
I like the positivity. I think, manifesting works. I'm a big believer in that. I'm also a big believer in living in delusion, so you pick your path.
I'll give it to you. That was pretty good.
Come on.
That was pretty good.
Come on.
Don't give him credit.
I actually thought Katie was going to be upset with that because she doesn't like my dad jokes.
Like a 6 out of 10. I would
Maybe
say.
I didn't land it because I didn't say the FOT right.
Yeah, I think you really needed to push that part of it, but you were close.
Yeah, I totally missed it. I totally missed that part.
You know what I should have did? I should have said that there's a fat chance, but then you probably wouldn't have got that either.
No.
That's on me. It's a good idea, though.
You were right there, but not quite. All right, Katie, we read this stat just a little bit ago. Derek Gould had it in his chat earlier today. If you go back to 2022, the year in which Paul Goldschmidt finished the season, as the National League MVP, around this time that year, he had an OPS hovering around the 550 range. And then he went on an absolute tear and became the best hitter in the National League for the next, 4 months or whatever. What is your level of belief at this point, given how much you've seen from Goldie over the last calendar year, that this is going to get corrected for him?
Yeah, that's tough, right? Because you look at someone like Paul Goldschmidt and the caliber of his career and what he's accomplished, and you have to believe it's going to turn around. And I hear the counter argument, he's 37, he's aging, and the at-bats have not looked good. I mean, there's been a handful over the last, 22 games? And that's not a sample size that anyone wants when you have just a handful of good at-bats. But this Cardinals lineup was crafted for the power that comes from Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. So for that sake alone, the Cardinals have to believe that Goldschmidt will turn it around. And when you look at, again, the caliber of his career and what he's accomplished, I don't think anyone should just be throwing that away because he's had a pretty poor first 3 weeks of the season. Is it concerning because of the quality of the at-bats? Yes. Would he be the first to say that this has been disappointing and he's let the team down? Yes, and he has. But this is a player who, in my mind, is an eventual Hall of Famer. And sometimes you really struggle in the beginning to figure it out. And I think that's where the Cardinals are with Goldschmidt. But look, guys, it's not like they have any other option right now that they can look to in terms of generating power. He has to figure this one out.
I think for me too, Katie, the part that's a little concerning is the younger guys and their struggles, especially when you look at Nolan Gorman and Jordan Walker. And I can understand the sentiment of, they're young, they'll figure it out. But, man, at some point you're looking at these guys saying, do the Cardinals have a problem with taking the next step with these younger players in development?
Well, let's look at how the Cardinals lineup was put together as a whole. And, I was high on this offense. BK, you were high on this offense.
Way too high.
The one thing I wasn't concerned about.
I still believe in it, Katie.
Offense.
I'm going down with the ship.
Titanic sinking fast.
I'm never wrong. That's a joke. The way that this lineup was constructed, your primary source of power comes from Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. And there was some concerns, where does the power come from if one or both of those players aren't clicking? Because your secondary tier it's Contreras, Nootbaar, Gorman, and to some extent, Walker. And what we're seeing, if, one of the Nolan or Goldschmidts is not clicking, that second tier of power hasn't really been able to support that. Now, if Contreras is getting on base, Nootbaar's at-bats are looking better, and I think Nolan's done a really good job of basically keeping this offense afloat. But the overall concern for me is where is the power if your two big bats aren't clicking? Because it's certainly not with Gorman right now, and it's not with Walker. And it's tough because they're so young and they definitely have a ton of talent. But they're also facing a lot of pressure to perform because there's nobody else there that can back up the rest of this lineup.
Katie, I don't know if this part got on Bally because I was down at the ballpark yesterday, but in the post-game press conference yesterday, Derek was trying to ask Ollie a question, and it didn't quite go across the way that he wanted it to, but he's basically asking, like, his premise was, is there a limit to what you're able to do as a manager when your offense is slumping like this? And I think what he was getting at, if I had to interpret it for myself, is, hey, listen, like, Paul Goldschmidt is going through it right now. Nolan Gorman is going through it right now. And until those guys get going, like, it doesn't really matter where you put them in the lineup. You're going to eventually have to see them come through in big spots, as we saw yesterday with Goldie as early as the first inning, not being able to come through once again. In your opinion, like, is that the case where this is just a matter of the guys have to get going and there's really not a whole lot that the manager can do to artificially kickstart this offense? Or do you think that there is something that can be done from a managerial side to get more out of this offense right now?
I think, and this is one thing that I think fans are getting frustrated of hearing, it's not for lack of effort with the coaching staff, with Turner Ward, with Ollie Marmol, with the players themselves. You know, I see them every day. The extra reps, the times that they're in the cage before the games, the way that they sit down and analyze in their hitting room, all of these different charts from pitchers, all the different heat maps. But ultimately, it's a results-based game. So I do think Ollie is a little bit limited because he can't take the bat and swing for these guys. He also, there's not really anyone else to supplement this lineup with right now. Look, Paul Goldschmidt's going to be in there every day. That's just, they're going to ride it out until he figures it out. But it's not like the Cardinals can sit Nolan Gorman or option Jordan Walker, because who would you bring up that you're confident about can make up for the lack of offensive production? These are their guys. When they built this roster, they didn't go out and get other position players because they believed that this was their core group that can perform. So Ollie can't mix and match because there's not a ton of options he has, whether they're currently on the roster or in AAA, that you would feel good about guaranteeing better offensive production. So it's tough. I think the coaching staff is pretty limited. At the end of the day, the players are the ones that have to go out and perform. They're feeling it. They're wearing it. But I also understand that that's wearing on the fans as well.
Katie, this might be too simple of a question, but I think all of us are on the same page of, like, we do believe the offense will break out of this rut. But do you believe that it might be too late when this offense breaks out for this team to kind of flip things around? And I know it's odd to say in April, but we saw it go fast last year.
Yes, we did. And I know that the records are similar at this time. And I also understand the organization's preference to not bring up last year. But in this case, I think it's important to note that the quality of games played in April of 2024 and April of 2023 are completely different. The Cardinals have lost 13 games. They're 9-13. 7 of those losses, the games have been decided by 2 runs or fewer. So those are winnable ball games. Every single game the Cardinals played in April last year was either a disastrous loss or an exhausting win. Even their wins weren't enjoyable. So already the quality product is better. And if the Cardinals are hitting half of those losses that they've had, maybe they win because, again, it's only a 2-run differential, and then they're a 500 club, and we're not talking about this. So if you're looking for a silver lining here, that they've been competitive in ball games doesn't ultimately change the final score or the standings. And I understand that's the most important part, and I completely agree. But they're right there. And that's the biggest difference this April than last April, at least in my opinion, is that they're at least playing a competitive ball game each night. And that was simply not the case last year. So I understand the urgency. I understand fans don't want to be told to be patient. I understand that hearing that from the organization comes across as tone deaf. I totally understand all of those things. But I don't think it's time to panic just yet. Give it another, I think the Steve-back series is important. I definitely wouldn't imagine saying that in the middle of April, but given how things are going right now, it'd be nice to stop the bleeding. But yeah, it's a fine line to walk, but I don't think it's as dire as last April, at least not yet.
Katie, final question that I've got for you. Katie Wu is our guest here on 101 ESPN. Find her great work over at The Athletic. You can read her 3 takeaways from the past week of Cardinals baseball. It wasn't a great week in Cardinals baseball, to put it lightly. When you look at Nolan Gorman, he's got an OPS of 550. He's striking out way too often. It's like 40% right now. Jordan Walker, OPS of 510 so far this year. His wins above replacement, despite pretty good defense this year, is in the negative. It's the worst on the team so far this season. We saw Victor Scott go down over the weekend because they had to try something different. Do you see a scenario if this thing does not get turned around with one of Gorman or Walker where something similar could take place for them to be able to get their offense figured out while they're not in the limelight?
I never want to just cast away guys, but at this point, I think it's definitely a feasible possibility for at least one of them, especially with Matt Carpenter coming back. He's been taking BP on the field. He'll need a rehab assignment, of course, and that does buy these guys some time to figure it out. But, Victor Scott's option makes sense. He was called up and rushed in a situation that wasn't his fault. I thought he did the best that he could. At some point, you're balancing as an organization, as a front office, what's best for your team in the moment and what's best for your player long term. If someone like Jordan Walker continues to swing and miss on the slider down and away and, continues with over 50% ground ball rates, the issues that they were trying to fix last year, and to Jordan's credit, he did. Would it benefit him to go down for 2 weeks and figure out the swing? Possibly. That's potentially a decision they could make. They could say the same about Gorman, that nearly 40% strikeout rate is just not feasible, especially for someone that has so much power, and we've seen it. So I don't think the Cardinals are there quite yet. Again, it goes back to the earlier point of just not having a lot of feasible options to replace these guys. If the Cardinals want to be that playoff caliber team, compete in the NL Central like they've stated so many times, this group right now that they have, that's the group that has to figure it out. And I think ultimately it will grant both Gorman and Walker a little bit more leeway.
Katie, appreciate the time as always. Thanks for hopping on with us today. Enjoy the game tonight. Hopefully we'll talk with you under better circumstances next week.
You got it, guys. Have a great week. See you soon.
Got it. That's Katie Wu joining us as she does each and every Monday here on BK and Ferrario. Appreciate her time as always. Alex, one of the reasons why I think it's eventually going to have to be a real conversation for the Cardinals, specifically with Walker, is because he's going to get nudged out of playing time sooner rather than later if he does not start hitting. They're going to have to start making some decisions because of the lack of production they're getting from Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Gorman of, all right, if these guys aren't going to hit immediately, well, then Ivan Herrera and Wilson Contreras have to be in our lineup every single day. Both of them have to be in the lineup. And that means taking up the DH spot with one of them, which means that one of your outfielders in Burleson, Donovan, or Nootbaar is not going to be in the lineup on a regular basis because you're also probably going to have Gorman at second base still. So what do? You probably start Donovan in one outfield spot, Nootbaar in the other, and Ciani in center. That gives you the best version of your defense plus offense capability in the outfield, and that would potentially mean Jordan Walker going down to AAA. I know nobody wants to hear it. I don't want to see it. I want this kid to succeed because I love watching Jordan Walker play baseball when it's going well. But, dude, it looks bad at the plate right now. And it is the same thing that they are attacking over and over and over again. So to the question, I think the guy that I would be is most likely to go down to AAA is probably Jordan Walker. And I think maybe he gets one more series to show that he's been working on some stuff and to see if it comes through in the games.
Yeah, I can't deny it. I mean, I'll stay on this island by myself, though. I'm not on board with that. I would much rather keep him up at the bigs and have him figure it out up here. And even going back to when Eduardo Perez was talking about it, like you figure that out at the big league level. But again, that's an island argument for me because I feel like it's going to end up where he is in Memphis. I mean, we saw it last year to where they weren't happy with the ball getting off of the ground with him, even when he was hitting. So they're going to want to send him down and figure it out and work with him.
I don't think they want to do this, to be clear. I think the ideal scenario is he gets this thing figured out in the next few days, and you start seeing signs of progress even if the results aren't there. But right now, the process looks bad, dude.
I would stick with it up here.
Even if it keeps looking like this?
Yeah, I would stick with it up here because I got to get him to figure it out at the major league level.
Even if it's costing you games, potentially.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because this goes back to the Victor Scott thing. There are more guys on this roster that should be carrying this offense rather than just Jordan Walker. And I want Jordan Walker to figure it out at the major league level.
Man, I hear you and I get it, but at a certain point, I can't have a guy batting 165 in my lineup on an everyday basis. And if he's not in there every day, I can't have him here. Like, I want that dude to figure it out, but sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it takes going back down a couple of times before you end up really thriving at the major league level. And I think that the pitching is so much different down in AAA. Maybe it's just about confidence. Maybe he needs to be able to work on himself without seeing that devastating slider down and away every single time that he goes to the plate. And maybe it ends up being the same thing. But last year we saw this where he came up to the big leagues once again, and, man, he hit the ground running. It was great. But I don't know. He would be the guy for me. T-Bone, do you see it the other way? Do you think Gorman's more likely to go down, or do you agree that it's Walker that's
I think at this point
closer?
And look, I know that a lot of fans want to hear this. At this point, you know this is what Gorman is. Like, Gorman's going to go through stretches like this. I still expect Gorman to, at some point, go through a stretch where he has like 10 games and hits like 6 home runs in 10 games. Like, this is Nolan Gorman. I think there's still a much higher ceiling for Jordan Walker to reach, but he's not going to be able to reach it right now with the flaws that he has at the plate. Like you said, they're attacking him with the hard slider away. He can't hit anything away because of that hip is leaking. So it's one of those that I would like to see them try and work it out at the big league level. I thought it was a mistake to send him down last year, even though he was hitting the ball on the ground, but he was still getting results. This year, though, without the results, trying to keep the season afloat, and with the offense being the reason you're struggling, it's not like this is the pitching staff that's keeping them down. I can't deny that it might be the best thing for Jordan Walker to go down to the minor leagues.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Coming up next, we're going to talk about Miles Mikolas and his rough weekend. I've seen this a lot. I just want to respond to it real quick. Somebody on the text line said, guys, this is the same roster that they had last year, and they weren't very good offensively last year. I don't know why people were expecting them to be any better. I just totally disagree with that. I think that the offense that you saw by the end of the year was not the offense that we saw for the majority of the season. If you want to look at batting average, I know earlier today that was something that Randy was all in on. It does matter to a degree, and last year they were 6th in Major League Baseball in batting average prior to August 1st when they had, the lineup that we're all talking about right now. After that, it ceased to be the offense that we were talking about currently. If you look at OPS, if you're more inclined in that direction, they were 7th in Major League Baseball last year in OPS. If you want to look at OPS plus, 6th last year in Major League Baseball in OPS plus, ahead of teams like Boston and Houston and Arizona. The offense was good last year, guys. I know it didn't feel that way at times, and it was absolutely up and down. That's baseball. Last year was just a season in which they sometimes did not come through, to Alex's point, with runners in scoring position. But the offense overall was pretty productive. This year it has not been. There is no number that I can point to that says this is a good offense. There's nothing. I can't sell you anything. So it is, to me, a lot different this time around than it was last year. All right, coming up next, Cardinals made a big bet on Miles Mikolas. It could not be off to a worse start. We'll talk about it.
And there's definitely some hard contact, and especially in his counts too, right, where he was 0-2, 1-2. I thought we saw a decent amount of hard contact, but there's also some soft contact, and they both worked.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, that was Ollie Marmol over the weekend talking about Miles Mikolas' start, which, whew, that was a rough one, boys. And it's been a rough start to the season so far. He's not giving you the innings that are supposed to be there when Miles Mikolas is on the mound. And the quality is rough. So far this season, he has a 6.5 ERA. By the numbers, he's been one of the worst starters in Major League Baseball so far this year. And yes, in a couple of the starts you can point to, he's had a bit of an unlucky stretch. That was not the case on Saturday, man. They hit the hell out of the baseball against Miles Mikolas. There was nothing that he could do to fool them. And this is part of the issue when you are dealing with a guy that pitches to so much contact. And I think sometimes we underestimate how good he was a couple of years ago because that's the style of pitcher that he is. Man, he also controlled the contact against him extraordinarily well. That is not happening right now. The contact that is happening when he's on the mound is loud, it goes far, and it doesn't result in a lot of outs right now. Alex, in his last two starts, he's gone 4 2/3 in each of those starts, and he's given up 5 earned runs in each of the, and over the weekend, 3 of those came via the home run. They placed a big bet in the offseason, the Cardinals did, on Miles Mikolas being a legitimate number 2 starter. And we had our disagreements on this, Alex, about if he's capable of being that. I think a couple of years ago, he pitched like a number 2, at least if you're looking at the ERA. This is not a number 2 starter. This is barely a number 5 starter in Major League Baseball right now. And if this is what they're getting out of him, we've talked a lot about the offense today, and that's the real concern for both the short and the long term. The spot with Miles Mikolas in your rotation is also a legitimate cause for concern, even if the offense gets going, man. What are you making right now of his struggles?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about this. I think a lot of this is the league changing and Miles Mikolas not being able to adapt to it. We've talked about the inability to shift now, and that really affects Miles Mikolas. But now you're starting to see the hard contact, and you just don't have that ability to catch hitters off with Miles Mikolas. It seems like they know exactly what's coming at them. And look, like you can get through, especially when guys like Matz and Lynn are performing the way that they're performing. And even Kyle Gibson, I know I joke about it, but the guy gives you innings and he keeps it close.
And most of his damage came in one inning.
Right.
It was one really bad first inning.
Right.
Terrible.
And Miles Mikolas right now, I mean, he's not giving you any of them. I mean, you've gotten a couple of games this season where he's given you 6 innings and given up 2 runs, and you're thinking, oh, okay, that's good to build off of, but you're not getting anything consistently right now. And my concern, which has been the concern for this rotation for the longest time, is like it looks good now, but what does it look like in 2 months? Because I'm not sure if Matz and Lynn and Gibson are all going to be able to sustain this, unlike a Sonny Gray is. You got to have at least 2 guys that I think can stay consistent for you all season long. And this is why I wanted the Jordan Montgomery at the time of that Miles Mikolas extension. And I know Scott Boras' client, you might not have gotten him an extension, whatever. I felt like this was the guy that you'd go for and think like, oh, he can give us longevity. And you bet on the wrong horse here for the Cardinals. And if you're not getting the pitch, well, you are getting the pitch to contact, but if it's not working in your favor of the defense and you being able to play gold glove behind him, he's not giving you innings. It's not going to be as effective innings for you in terms of 3, 4, 5 innings. That's more of a liability for you every 5th time through the rotation than what it was 2 years ago.
Can I give you his numbers on the slider so far this year?
I'm looking at it right now, not good.
He's thrown his slider more than any other pitch so far this season, and it's by a decent margin. It's just he's thrown it 31% of the time so far this year, and I don't know why that's happened because that was not his mix last year, and it might be trying to chase the strikeouts. I don't know. I can't explain it. He needs to stop because so far this season, opposing hitters, and this is not based on getting particularly unlucky with the batted ball data, opposing hitters, when he throws his slider, are batting .370 with a slugging percentage of .660.
He doesn't have a wipeout pitch.
This is supposed to be it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He doesn't have one, and so hitters know exactly what's going to be coming when you get to 2 strikes, so he's throwing a slider here.
.370 batting average. A slugging percentage of .670. Of the 13 hits, 6 of them have gone for extra bases against him. And what the old classic saying, like the juice is not worth the squeeze. He's getting a whiff on it 17% of the time, which is less than what he's getting on his curveball and significantly less than what he's getting on his sweeper. It's the better of his two sliders right now in terms of the results, small sample size, but it's pretty similar in terms of the whiff rate to his four-seam 93-mile-per-hour fastball, which is not a swing and miss pitch. This slider is not working. And I know it's something that he wanted to work on in the offseason. He's got to have a new plan because what's happening right now is not something you can continue with.
Well, and I think the part for him, and look, I'm not going to be a fraud. I didn't see much of his start on Saturday, because I was out of town, but seeing the highlights, and I think it's been the theme for him. This is why pitch-to-contact pitchers, they can work to what BK said, where he wasn't giving up a lot of hard contact in 2022, but it's why I feel like you have to look at what their previous season was, and if you look at the previous season for Mikolas, it was not good, and it's why they shouldn't have bet on him as the number 2. It's twofold. One, when you are pitching to contact, you're just playing the BABIP luck. You know, he was giving up a ton of hard contact. He could have had a bunch of outs on Saturday, or you see what you saw on Saturday, where he gives up home runs, and he ends up giving up a lot of runs. But the other thing, too, for him, and I think it ties into his slider really struggling, is when you are a pitch-to-contact guy, the way you get the soft contact is you're always painting the corners. You know, when you think of Mikolas when he was right, it was he could throw that two-seamer or sinker, whatever you want to call it. He could backdoor that thing in on a lefty, or he could get it running in on a right-hander, and he's always painting the corners. He's getting those calls from the umpires, the borderline of the strike zone. The problem for him right now, for me, is the fastball and sinker aren't pinpoint command right now. So then when you start to go to those off-speed pitches, A, your fastball's already in the middle. B, when you do go to the slider, it doesn't have that same wipeout effect. And it's right now just spinning, frankly. I mean, the home run to Hoskins was just a spinner up in the zone. He's not pinpoint command right now. He's too loose with the command. And if he's not going to have that command, he's not going to be able to get the soft contact. He's not going to be able to set up the slider to your point and to Alex's point of that being his wipeout pitch. It's all just going to equal to what you're seeing right now from Miles Mikolas. And can he get that back? I think finding command, some guys can get that back, especially if you don't throw 100 like Mikolas doesn't. But, man, it is a dangerous game to play when you're playing just the BABIP luck. And if you're not hitting the corners, all of a sudden you're starting to throw the ball in the zone a little bit more, and now you're really playing into that luck. And to the point of the shift, I do think it had an impact. I'm not saying he went from being a above-average, all-star caliber starter to this below-league average guy because the shift got banned. No. But I do think it plays some into some of the luck that's played Miles Mikolas over the last year and 5 starts this year.
I think it didn't force him to have to be creative when you had the shift because you knew, like, hey, if the wipeout stuff's not working, I can just go back to what works, make contact, and get through it. Now you have to be more creative with your pitch selection, and it feels like batters are sitting on that one pitch.
I think there's some truth to that. There's a lot of stuff, though, in his data that suggests that this is just a different pitcher than what he was 2 years ago. And it's not just... I think that part of what has gone into his struggles are absolutely the shift. I think that is part of it because we've seen now the results are in. The lack of a shift means more balls put into play turn into hits than previously. And there are very few pitchers in Major League Baseball that have more balls put into play against them than Miles Mikolas. So ipso facto, he would be allowing more hits as a result of that. The difference, though, is like the quality of the contact against him is different now than it was 2 years ago. They are hitting the ball harder more often than they did 2 years ago against him. It's going over the fence more often than it did at that point. And to your point on the command, T-Bone, he was one of the best pitchers in the league over the past couple of seasons at not walking people. He's walking more guys this year. Yeah. That's even been a bit of an issue for Miles Mikolas. If you look at some of the spin rate for Mikolas, whether it's his fastball or his breaking ball, his spin rates are not as good as they were 2 years ago. Like, there is some real cause for concern that the quality of the pitches are deteriorating for Miles Mikolas. His extension is not as good as it was 2 years ago, and it's significant in terms of the lack of extension that he's getting compared to then. So it might be something where his mechanics have, over a 2-year stretch of time, been tweaked a bit, maybe not even by him, like, knowing it. I wonder, like, if he looked at video from 2 years ago and he looked at video of himself today, if he would see some decent differences. And some of that might just be like, hey, man, he's getting older. Like, your body moves a little differently as you continue to get older. I don't know. I'm not a pitching expert, but when you look into the numbers, when you just watch him pitch, it is a different guy than what we saw in 2022.
We should ask Jack Flaherty. He knows ball.
He's actually playing well. He might be able to help.
Need to find out what he's got then.
T-Bone, We're going to get into NFL quick hitters on the other side, including a few things that are taking place right now with the NFL draft, some of the news that's coming out today. Schefter has a bunch of stuff. You mad about Zach Thompson?
I am mad about Zach Thompson. The way the Cardinals are utilizing him, look, I don't think he was ever going to develop into this number 2, number 3 starter. But can we pick a path for Zach Thompson to develop? Is he a reliever or is he a starter? I thought the plan was a starter. Okay, so if that was the case, I understood keeping him up here when Sonny Gray had a pitch limit, you know, at 65, 75. Okay, maybe you can piggyback him. Guys, Gray's built up. Hell, he was fantastic yesterday, if he even had a pitch limit yesterday.
90.
Great. Zach Thompson, if he is a starter, needs to be in the minor leagues, continuing to stretch out and work as a starter. Work on why is the velo in the 89-mile-an-hour range when he's starting for the St. Louis Cardinals. Not just throw him in the bullpen, let him sit there, drink his Kool-Aid, and then 10 days later between appearances, throw him out there. Yeah, he was going to fail yesterday when he was brought into the game. Look, they need to pick a path for Thompson. They need to decide today, is he a reliever or is he a starter this season for the Cardinals? Because if he's a starter, he needs to go down to Memphis and he needs to start pitching every day in that rotation. Because right now they're doing him no favors. Once again, Zach Thompson has no idea what he is. And if they're going to have him go in these long periods between outings because they're going to wait for the long man to be ready to go, he's not going to develop. You're just wasting a prospect. And again, I don't think he can be a number 2. I don't think he can be a 3. Hell, he could develop as a number 5 quality starter, though, for you. And the Cardinals are just wasting him and don't have a game plan for him. And it's frustrating. I had these issues with Oli Marmol, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, where they'd bring in Helsley. They say, we got to save him for high leverage. Got to save him for high leverage. Okay, well, we're 7 games away from the last high leverage spot. Now we bring him in. We're shocked when he struggles. No, Zach Thompson, pick a path, Cardinals. Pick a path. Is he a reliever or is he a starter? And send him down today if he is.
I'm excited to see Zach Thompson be the next all-star starting pitcher for the San Francisco
NFL
Giants.
quick hitters is next here on 101 ESPN. Alex, I look forward to the rain nowadays because I know as I walk outside, I look at my front yard and I think to myself, green envy has me taken care of. One of the only things that I have to do in my yard now is mow and water. And when the rain comes down, that means I only have to do one thing, and it's the mowing, with Green Envy taking care of our yard now. We gave them a call a couple of years ago. They've been helping us out. They put down the fertilizer. They put down the seeding in the fall as well. And around this time of the year, I get to look around and judge all my other neighbors because their yard just simply doesn't look as good as it could if they gave Green Envy a call.
And look, if you're not using Green Envy, that rain that BK's talking about, that would stress you out because of those spring weeds that come up, temps rise, and then you're going to be worrying about all of the weeds everywhere. If you're a Green Envy customer, they take care of the weed touch-up all year long for $0 charge. So make sure you're a Green Envy customer. There's crabgrass that they take care of. They have licensed professionals from the Missouri Department of Agriculture and use formulated products just for Missouri soil weather conditions and turf types. So give them a call today and tell them BK and Ferrario sent you and join Green Envy. 636-757-1600. That's 636-757-1600.
Terra Hendricks near the Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals fall to the Brewers over the weekend 2-0 as they are swept by their division foe. They are back in action as they start a 3-game set with the Arizona Diamondbacks tonight. 6:45 will be first pitch. Brandon Pfaadt will get the start for Arizona, and Lance Lynn will be on the mound for the St. Louis Cardinals. The Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it is officially NFL Draft Week. Thursday night is the NFL Draft. You'll hear that, by the way, right here on 101 ESPN. We'll have coverage starting Thursday at 6 o'clock. Alex, the first overall pick has been set in stone for, months at this point. It's going to be Caleb Williams. It was always Caleb Williams, quarterback out of USC. The real intrigue for this year's draft starts at number 2. And it's all about the quarterbacks right now. Jaden Daniels is the presumed favorite, the quarterback out of LSU, to go number 2 overall to the Washington Commanders. And earlier today, Adam Schefter put out a piece with all of the stuff that he is hearing about this year's NFL draft. He says that the Commanders are still leaning towards going with Jaden Daniels, but that there are other teams that would like to trade up, including the Las Vegas Raiders, who reportedly have a lot of interest in Jaden Daniels. They view him as a legit first-round pick, a day-one starter for their franchise. If you're forgetting, Antonio Pierce was one of the coaches at Arizona State when Jaden Daniels was the quarterback at Arizona State. Alex, as we are officially in NFL Draft Week, what do you think happens with the number 2 overall pick?
I think it gets traded. I think that Raiders thing's really interesting because if you're the Commanders and Jaden Daniels has made it pretty clear that he doesn't want to play for you, if you're the Raiders, maybe you can pull off what the Bears just pulled off with the Carolina Panthers, to where, like, hey, you know what, you trade up there, and maybe Michael Penix Jr. does not work out for the Raiders at the number 2 overall pick, but if you're
Daniels.
Yeah, Daniels, sorry. If it doesn't work out and you just traded that, you trade down, maybe you get a later quarterback, maybe you go elsewhere and feel like quarterbacks down the road. If the Raiders don't work with Jaden Daniels, you might be selecting first overall next season, and you might you would grow your picks in the first round for this year. So I do really believe it's going to get traded now if Daniels doesn't want to go there, because I don't know if the Commanders like Drake May.
If I'm them, I'm saying screw you.
Yeah, that's
if you don't
what I was
want to
going to
play
say.
here, fine. You're going to. Like, what's your alternative?
No, I'm with you.
You're not going to sign?
Yeah.
Cool. Give up the $20 million that you would otherwise get by signing here in Washington.
But what if he does? And then you don't, and then you got a quarterback that doesn't work out with a second overall pick.
He's not going to not sign with you. Like, I just think there's so little stakes here if you're Washington. Take the guy that you think is the best quarterback. You're the number 2 overall pick. You have anybody in this draft not named Caleb Williams. I think they like Jaden Daniels. I think he's going number 2 overall, and I think it's to the Commanders. I think the story about him not wanting to play there is nonsense. I think it's just a total plant, and it possibly is even from the Raiders. Because if you're the Raiders, like, yeah, I would absolutely want this out there of, hey, that guy doesn't want to play for you. Like, I think it's crazy.
Man, that's a hell of a way to start, though, with your new franchise quarterback.
Yeah, I don't care. You're not gonna like it. We don't care. Go out there and earn your next contract to where you can go play for somebody else. I think they take him at number 2. And it's the same story with Caleb Williams. All the reports are, oh, you don't want to go to Chicago. Okay.
I think this is something that we're going to hear a lot of in the future because of the portal and all of this and players being able to decide their landing spots in college more freely. You can't do that in the NFL. That's not how this works. You got to get like 7 years into your career before you get to determine where you play.
Yeah, I think he's going to Washington. Oakland, dang it, Las Vegas. I'll be fascinated to know if they try to get into 3 or 4, but I don't know if they feel better about, like, Drake May. Drake May's the quarterback that I just don't know who's in on him. Everybody views him as a first-round talent, but who's the team that's going to reach for him? I think New England's going to be listening. Arizona's going to be listening, and that's when we start to get in those conversations to trade up. But I think Daniels is going number 2 overall.
All right, a few other things that I wanted to get to from this piece by Adam Schefter. He mentions in here that the Seahawks are a team worth monitoring to potentially take a quarterback in the first round this year. Now, their offensive coordinator was the offensive coordinator at Washington. So it's worth keeping that in mind as a connection to Michael Penix Jr. Alex, do you buy the hype that Seattle could be a team in the middle of the first round to watch for one of those quarterbacks?
Maybe.
Got Geno in place.
Yeah, I mean, Geno wasn't as great as I thought they were going to be this past year. And maybe that's the Pete Carroll effect. Maybe they get a new head coach like they did, and things change. I feel like Seattle, they've got the offensive weapons. You have a decent defense. Their quarterback was the problem. So I don't know if you trade up if you're Seattle for Michael Penix. Frankly, I think that's just to see if he falls to us, and if he does, great. If not, there's other areas to fix. But yeah, I would keep them on quarterback watch, because if Penix Jr. and Bo Nix fall there, it comes down to, does Seattle believe in either of those guys? Because I think you only got one more year of Geno Smith before you have to make a move.
Yeah, I think they would like to replace Geno, or at least draft the guy in waiting for Geno Smith at this year's draft. What I'm not buying, though, is I'm not buying the Penix buzz, and I'm not buying the Bo Nix buzz in the first round. It's silly season, folks. It is silly season. I think there are 4 quarterbacks going in the first round. I think the quarterback Seattle either A, trades up for, or hope falls into their lap is one of the quarterback from J.J. McCartney or Drake May. I think it's one of those two. And if it doesn't, I think they just select with that pick, and I don't think it's quarterback. I don't think Michael Penix or Bo Nix are first-round picks this year.
All right, well, speaking of Bo Nix, the next thing that we got to get to.
Don't say it.
The Rams are scheduled to make a first-round pick for the first time since 2016 when they used the number 1 overall pick that year on Jared Goff. They have 11 total picks this year, tied for the most in the league. They are in position to be able to strengthen their defense, according to Adam Schefter, which lost Aaron Donald to retirement. However, should they look for a future successor for quarterback Matthew Stafford, they could look for a familiar face. Les Snead was a graduate assistant at Auburn in 1993 when the school's quarterback was Patrick Nix. That name may sound familiar because Patrick Nix is Bo's father.
Good.
It always
There is
works.
a connection with
Hire
the
your son.
family there for Les Snead and Bo Nix. T-Bone, what would your reaction be if on Thursday night we get to the Rams' first round selection since Jared Goff, and the name that is called is Bo Nix, quarterback out of Oregon?
Well, I can tell you it'd be something that would have to be dumped on air because it'd be what the you-know-what. I think it'd be ridiculous to take a quarterback at this point. If you're the Rams, you're so invested in Stafford, don't waste a pick on a quarterback in waiting. Worry about, and I feel this way for a lot of teams when they go this route. Well, I thought it was a mistake when the Packers went with Love in the first round rather than adding more weapons for Rodgers. And look, they may end up being right in that selection. I just think when you have the quarterback in place, what's the Rams doing? They are all in on offense. Their offseason was basically, defensively, we're going to suck. So let's go all offense. I think you have to take that pick on a weapon for the offense, or I think what they're going to do is they're going to go at edge. I think the talk of them drafting a quarterback is just the classic, oh, well, Stafford's getting older, so hey, maybe this is the year they take a quarterback. They were connected to quarterbacks last year, and they took like Bennett in like the 5th round. I'm totally fine with that. If you want to say, hey, this guy could be a backup quarterback for us that could fit into our system, I get that. They should not waste their first round or their second round pick on a quarterback in this year's class.
I think you're going to read a lot this week about teams that are interested in quarterbacks. And I think the reason why you will read that is because teams want to move down in this year's draft. And you know what's a good way to do that? Is to convince other teams you might take a quarterback, because then you get a better haul whenever you trade that pick to somebody else. Because if they're moving up, especially if it is for Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr., etc., they are going to have to do so within the back of their mind, a quarterback tax. So I think a lot of teams, I think the Seahawks, I think Indianapolis will be connected eventually to like some of the big time, like Brock Bowers, for example. They can't convince anybody that they're connected to a quarterback. So who are the other players that people deem to be super valuable? Bowers would be one of those. Maybe the corners would be another. Then you get further on, like the Rams are a team that, oh, we might take a quarterback. Watch out. Things could get a little crazy here. Dallas should be doing the same thing right now, where they're like, we could take a quarterback. We're
Jerry's feeling frisky.
First round pick in like what, 15 years, and you take a backup quarterback.
I could see a lot of teams being connected to these quarterbacks because of the trade down reason. This is a draft that, according to all of the experts, it's a really top heavy draft in terms of like the top 10 picks, and then from like 11 to 50, just a lot of really good players, and then it drops off a cliff after like the 100th pick in this year's draft. So people want to be selecting in that late first into the early third round, and beyond that, there's not a ton of value. So I could see a lot of trading up and down within that group of picks right there. All right, coming up in about 15 minutes or so, we're going to talk about Jordan Walker a little bit further. Is he at risk of becoming the next player to suffer the fate that we saw for Victor Scott over the weekend of being sent back down to AAA? And is there legitimate reason to do so? We'll talk about that coming up in 15 minutes. The Juncture next here on BK and Ferrario.
Hey everyone, it's Ted from Consumer Cellular, the guy in the orange sweater, and this is your wake-up call. If you're paying too much for wireless service, you don't have to keep having that nightmare. Consumer Cellular has the same fast, reliable coverage as the leading carriers for up to half the cost. So why keep spending more than you have to? Seriously, wake up and call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com.
Savings based on cost of Consumer Cellular single line 1, 5, and 10 gig data plans with unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plans offered by T-Mobile and Verizon January 2024.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Go to hims.com/joy. Through HIMS, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, and the process is 100% online. To start your free online visit, go to hims.com/joy. That's HIMS.com/JOY.
In the fast-paced world of digital marketing, making connections is a challenge for any business. But what if we told you there's a place where connections aren't just made, they're grown? Meet 2060 Digital, your premier Google partner and top-tier digital agency. We don't just follow trends, we set them. At 2060 Digital, we're not just another agency, we're your strategic partner. We dive deep into your challenges and develop solutions that drive measurable outcomes. Ready to elevate your digital presence with campaigns that connect? Google 2060 Digital today.
ESPN has your chance to score free tickets for Aerosmith with special guest The Black Crowes on October 14th at Enterprise Center. It's the Peace Out Farewell Tour of Aerosmith. Get all the ticket details and get entered to win those free tickets right now, either at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
Imagine there's a decent number of times that you walk into your kid's room and you realize, oh my God, there's something missing, right? You don't know where it went. You don't know why it's missing, but
most
it's just
of the time
missing.
it's the kids.
And a lot of the times socks, clothes that you thought were in there that are just suddenly gone. Toys, binkies for me, I don't know where they go. They just disappear. Like there's
like
somebody that is...
Just put like 10 of them in my baby's crib and be like, where'd they all go?
Yeah, and
They're
then by the end of the night...
Did you eat this?
They're hidden in the back of the mattress, and I don't know how they got there, but weird stuff happens.
She smuggled them in her, whatchamacallit, the little like Snuggie wrap thing, the little swaddle. She used to smuggle them in her swaddle. And they'd be like, where are they? There would be like 10 of them when you unzipped her in the morning.
It's pretty amazing. The reason why I ask is because sometimes there's something in the room that you didn't expect to be there. That is the case. For one unfortunate family, they found a human jawbone inside of their son's rock collection.
Time to move out.
Rock collection. That was 20 years ago. They have now had the genealogy report that came back finally, and they found out that it was a 30-year-old that died in a military training exercise in 1951.
Jeez.
And somehow...
On their property, or was this elsewhere?
His human jawbone containing several teeth ended up in their rock collection. Can you imagine finding this in your kid's rock collection where you're like, hey, what's that? Oh, those are human teeth. Human remains that you picked up outside.
Where was he doing the rock? Like, was he digging in his backyard, or were they at a park and then they like just...
I have a lot of questions for the kid.
Unclear on how the jawbone ended up in Arizona. It is possible, though, that a bird picked it up from California and dragged it to Arizona while flying.
I'd try and sell it.
That's unbelievable, dude.
I can't even imagine.
I'd try and sell that jawbone.
I'd originally think that it's like a fake jawbone. Like, you can buy... Like at a zoo, you can get like you'll see a skeleton, or you can buy like crocodile teeth, something like that. That's originally what I would think. So actually, I probably would have totally overlooked this. I would have been like, oh, he probably picked this up at like a zoo or something. Granted, I don't know what it looked like. Like maybe it's obvious, like, oh, that's clearly human remains.
Could be concerning to find a jawbone in the zoo also.
Well, it was also concerning for them to find it in the rock collection because you don't know where it's from. Like, could this be something that like somebody was dead in our backyard?
Oh, that is true. I didn't even think of that.
That's why I'd be ready to move out.
There was a murder that took place, and we had no idea, and our kid is just like rummaging through the rocks.
I thought originally? I thought it was going to be like an animal. When you started to say like, well, they were looking through the rock, I thought you were going to say, oh no, did they find like
just some
like
U.S.
a little
Marine
skeleton
from
or something?
60 years prior.
That's terrifying.
That had been
What's even more terrifying
away
is
in California.
If that kid's like any of my kids, they put everything in their mouth. So probably had a jawbone in their mouth at some point.
Talk about a jawbreaker. Coming up next,
Nice.
is Jordan Walker at
That's
risk
pretty
of
good.
suffering the same fate for the Cardinals as Victor Scott just did? We hope not. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Bet like the pros with the world's largest sports book right at your fingertips. Circus Sports is now available in Illinois. Hi, I'm Derek Stevens. I've been a lifelong sports bettor, and I'm the owner of Circus Sports. We're excited that the Circus Sports app is now ready for action. Experience big app bets with high betting limits, tight money line splits, and more. Now you can download, fund, and bet like a pro from anywhere in Illinois. Download your new bookie today at circusports.com. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends at Rhino Shield, making your house, your business, your church look brand new. I had a neighbor walk over to me this weekend as I was doing the yard work, and he walked by and he goes, "Man, did you paint this yourself?" And I said, "No." I said, "I am not that talented." And he goes, "Man, it looks incredible." And I explained to him that I use Rhino Shield because I was going to do it myself, but when it comes to using the cheap paint that you're going to buy from the hardware store, the rain is going to wash it away. The UV rays from the sun, it's going to deteriorate it so that in the fall and the winter, by next spring, you're going to be painting it again, but not with Rhino Shield. Rhino Shield, 100% waterproof. It deflects 90% of the UV rays. It's a 2 to 3 coating process that sticks like the coating of a Rhino. It is going to weather whatever elements come your way. And it's backed by a 25-year transferable warranty for your house, your business, maybe it's your roof, not even the siding. Rhino Shield is the place for you. Give Darren a call today. Tell him I sent you. 877-25-RHINO. That's 877-25rhino.com.
The Missouri Laborers Union and their contractors build our communities. Chances are your church, school, grocery store, or gas station was built by contractors using union laborers. They take great pride in their work and accomplishments and love to go by an old project and say, "I built that." The men and women of the Missouri Laborers Union and their contractors, taking pride in building our communities. Go to buildunion.com for more information. That's buildunion.com.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So over the weekend, Alex, the Cardinals decided to send Victor Scott II down to AAA. T-Bone, do we have this audio from Ollie Marmol? And he explained why they decided to do that and what he hopes Victor Scott gets out of it. This is courtesy of Bally Sports Midwest.
When you look at Victor, great conversation with him today as far as what he needs. And man, we're both on the same page, getting some at-bats in AAA and just honing in on his game, being able to spray the ball over the field, had high line drives, not work underneath the ball as much as he's worked underneath the ball here, and even working on the bunting side of things as well. So great conversation. He felt the same way, getting down there, putting his head down, and just getting to work was important. And we'll see him again. And when we do, hopefully he never goes back down.
So Victor Scott is heading down. I think we all agreed. We said this prior to the weekend. We kind of saw this coming, and we said it was the right call. You'll have Siani playing the majority of those innings in center field now. I would imagine there will be a couple of days here or there where Lars Nootbaar will get an opportunity in center field, but the vast majority of those, you're getting the same defense for the most part out of Siani as you did from Victor Scott. You get a little bit more offense. Not a ton, but a little bit more offense, and you're not worried about Michael Siani if he has some kind of a snowball effect where offensively it just kind of goes for him, whatever. When you had that with Victor Scott, it mattered for the long-term future for him. So send him down, let him get a little bit more confidence. I do want to talk about the next guy that could have a similar path, Alex. And I'm not hoping for this. I don't want this to be the case. I would like nothing more than for Jordan Walker to get things back on track offensively. But Jordan Walker's going through it right now. He's swinging and missing way too much at the same things that he was swinging and missing way too much at last year, which is that slider down and away. He's hitting the ball harder on average than he did last year, but he's not making enough contact. And Alex, if that continues, I do think with Siani in center and you most likely going to two catchers in the lineup on most days, we're not too far away from the Cardinals having to make a determination on, does it make sense for us to have Walker in our everyday lineup, or is it better to go with Donovan and Nootbaar in the outfield every day? And if that ends up being their decision, you probably have to send Jordan Walker back down sooner rather than later to get this back on track offensively.
Yeah, and I think the Cardinals are going to get to that point. Again, I'm on an island with this. I really think I would much rather, specifically for the status of who Jordan Walker is and the high-profile prospect that he is, I'd like to see him work through those kinks up at the major league level because that's the type of pitching he's going to see. And I just, if it's a confidence thing, fine, but I'd like to see this work through up at the major league level, and this is what Eduardo Perez was talking about back when we spoke with him. I just feel like it's beneficial for a Jordan Walker to figure out how to go through, navigate these waters as a pro ball player rather than go to the minors and get your confidence back, come back up, and then look good, but then you're going to struggle again. I just think it's important to work through these. And again, I understand you are putting your team at risk, but as I talked about with Victor Scott, and Scott I can understand a little bit because had no taste of AAA, was just sped right to the major leagues. And I know Walker's had a very minimum taste of AAA, but we've seen it work at the major league level. And I think even if it's a confidence issue right now, I want to see if the Cardinals and Jordan Walker can work through this at the major league level rather than send him down to the minors, because I think that's going to be beneficial for his long-term career.
So who do you take out of the lineup then? Because if you're keeping Walker in, one of Gorman, Newt, or Donovan can't be in the lineup. So who's missing the reps for you?
I think it comes down to a rotation with it. I mean, like, Gorman's not hitting also. So if we're going to take Walker out, Gorman could be another one that comes out. Donovan
But if you're saying you want to keep Walker in because he's a young player due to the struggles, does the same not apply for you?
No, it does. I want these guys in there. I want them working through their kinks right now. I want Walker in there. I want Gorman in there. I want Donovan in there. And I understand you've got all of these guys. It might come down to having to only have one catcher in the lineup.
But that makes you worse.
I get it. But I also don't. I would much rather see the development process with these guys figuring out at the major league level.
I think they find themselves in the rock between a hard place because, to his point, I think his point is valid. Keeping the young guys in and trying to work through this, if you had, like,
that's
Donovan,
what they're doing right now. Like,
Gorman,
they're clearly in favor of that path because otherwise we would have already seen one of these guys down in AAA. But I think there will come a point in time, and I think we're close to it, where you have to make that choice.
I think it is best right now to continue down that path of seeing the young guys, but I think you're right. I think you're getting to the breaking point for the Cardinals. And again, if Walker goes down, I don't think it's 100% hey, it's Jordan Walker. It is part on Walker. Walker is not hitting, has the same issues as last year, which is a little frustrating from a development standpoint, that these issues weren't curtailed and worked on in the offseason, and you're not seeing results like you saw Wynn get his cup of coffee at the big leagues, see what struggles needed to happen, and then he's able to work on it in the offseason, and we've seen he's been a really good hitter for the Cardinals. I think Walker can still get there, but I think part of the reason you have to send down Jordan Walker and the fact that this is a conversation isn't just solely on Jordan Walker. Yes, there is a lot of, man, that hip is leaking. Man, he cannot hit anything away because the hip is leaking. But that should be something they should be able to work on at the big league level. The problem is the whole offense is not hitting. And when that happens, they have to do what you're talking about is they have to put both catchers in the lineup. They have no choice right now. They have to put Herrera in the lineup as the DH or the catcher. Same with Contreras. Yep. Otherwise, the season is sinking into the abyss right now. That's where they're at, and that's why I think by the end of this homestand against the Diamondbacks, if there are not positive trends, they have got to send down Jordan Walker.
And this is why, like, the two timelines thing is kind of coming to rear its ugly head. If this was a team that was in a retool like the Blues, Alex, I would totally be with you. If the stated expectation, the stated goal for this season was just, hey, we're going to try to get these young guys to take that next step, and we believe in them. We're going to let them take their lumps. And, like, we talked about this with Doug Armstrong. Hey, when Bolduc is making a play that ends up with a puck going into the back of your net, it is what it is. He's going to make those plays. He's young. Like, that's what you're growing with him right now to avoid in the future. That's not where the Cardinals are at, man. This team is supposed to be contending. This team is supposed to be one with Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson and Sonny Gray and Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. Like, these are not guys that you're growing for the future with. These are guys that you're winning with right now. That's why you signed them. That's why you trade for these guys. And so if we're going down that path of trying to win, and I know they're not doing a good job of it, guys. I get that. I'm not telling you otherwise. But if that is the goal, then you have to do everything you can on every given day to achieve that goal. And putting these guys out there every day is not allowing you to reach that level. Now, if it was just Walker that was struggling, if it was Goldie's hitting like he did last year, Arenado's good, Gorman's not going through this slump, you got Newt and Donovan hitting pretty well, you could live with this. You could have probably lived, honestly, with Victor Scott at the bottom of your lineup because Wynn's hitting, like, you can work with any two guys at any given time, kind of going through it a little bit. That's how most lineups are, even the best ones in Major League Baseball. You cannot live with this when you have like 7 guys in your lineup that are going through a slump at the same time. At that point, you have to search for production from anywhere you can find it. And that production right now is coming from your 2 catchers. It's coming from Mason Wynn. And while Brendan Donovan isn't hitting super well right now, man, his on-base percentage is still, even right now, while he's batting .210, his on-base percentage is .320. Dude, Walker would kill for that. So I do think you're at a place where Newt has to play every day. Donovan has to play every day. I have less concern long-term about Gorman than I do about Walker, given how both look at the plate right now, because I've seen Gorman go through slumps like this and get to the other side. I think eventually you're going to have to decide, out of those guys, who's the odd man out? For me, it would be Jordan Walker.
And the other thing is, I think we talked about this last week, is it's the litmus test of defense versus offense. Because when you were asking Alex of, well, how do you get all these guys in? How do you keep Donovan and Gorman and Walker in the lineup and Newpar in the lineup? Well, you move Newpar to center and you pull Ciani out from that starting lineup and he goes back to that bench role. Well, now you're worse defensively in center. You're probably average at best in center. You're average in right and you're average in left with Brendan Donovan out there as the left fielder. Like,
Can I give you 2 OPSs real quick?
Sure.
To your point on trading offense for defense, one player has a 633 OPS. The other player right now has a 510 OPS. That first one was for Michael Ciani. The second one was for Jordan Walker.
Let me be clear. I'm not saying by what their offense is right now.
What you hope it is.
What you hope it is. Because, yeah, right now, Ciani's better than... Is that even better than Goldie? That might be better than Goldschmidt.
It is.
Yeah. See, like
it's better than Goldie. It's better than Gorman. It's better than Walker.
Like, it's more of the thought process of, okay, well, we want to have these guys work through these struggles, so we have to give up defense because of that.
And here's my question. Aren't you delaying the inevitable in this sense? Because we've all agreed, like, Goldschmidt's not going to be in the plans for this team moving past this season. And who knows, with Nolan Arenado, you're going to be relying on these guys next season. And yes, you are considered a team that's trying to compete, but it has not started off well for you right now. Let's say Walker goes down and the struggles continue. By the trade deadline, if you're out of it and you're looking at this saying, all right, well, Goldschmidt's not going to be here, Arenado's not going to be here, you're going to be relying on these guys. And this is why I just look at it and say, look, yeah, you're probably costing your team runs right now, but if this is the guy that you're surrounding the future around, at some point, I can't keep doing this. We're going to send him down to get his confidence back and bring him back up when his confidence is back. And then what happens when his confidence disappears again when we're doing it? I just feel like you're toying with the player a little bit.
Yeah, I view that as a July decision or an August decision. Like, if you get to a place where you're no longer in competition to win your division, to make it to the playoffs, yeah, at that point, like, go with the young guys. Play all of them. Get Goldie out of here. Like, decide what you're going to do with Nolan Arenado long term. Trade the veteran pitchers that are on one-year deals. Like, if we get there, Alex, I'm totally with you. Then you just got to stick with Jordan Walker through thick and thin. But for right now, dude, you cannot let this season slip away from you again. And I like Jordan Walker. I think he's going to be a really good baseball player for the Cardinals. His defense is approved, guys. Like, the defense is fine. The defense has not been a problem for the Cardinals this year. It's the offense that's a problem for the Cardinals. And the offense for everybody is a problem right now. So, to your point on, like, he eventually is going to have to figure out how to deal with these struggles and get it back on track at the big league level. Totally agree. He's 21. Like, I think that's going to come with time. Right now, if he was the only one working on it, I would absolutely want him to continue to work on it here. He's not. And every single day he goes out there, he's trying to hit a 7-run home run when he walks up to the plate because him and everybody else in the lineup are struggling. So this is exactly the type of scenario that I would try to avoid with him if possible. I would give him this Arizona series, and then if it doesn't go well, I'd probably send him down and bring up, I mean, whoever. If you want to call up Jose Fermin,
he's the future.
Cool. Yes. I think that's probably the answer because whoever you call up is not going to be starting regularly. There are going to be guys that are called in to be an extra and to come in a utility role. So Fermin is probably the guy that you would call up. And does that make you better? It might. It might, for at least the here and now. Coming up next, in or out here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We've done a lot of negative stuff today.
So you want to keep going?
I don't know what's been going on well right now in St. Louis sports.
Let's talk about it from the other angle. Guys, in or out?
Out.
Sonny Gray finishes the year as a top 5 Cy Young candidate in the National League this year.
Out. Need wins.
Dude, Sonny Gray was awesome yesterday. He's got 2 of them, by the way. 2 and 1.
Nice. I'll say I'm in on this, and it might just be because everybody else is getting hurt around the National League. Merrill Kelly I don't even think he made the start yesterday. I think he got scratched late from the Diamondbacks start. But I'll say I'm in on this because he looks really good. One thing that will hurt him is missing the first 3 starts, but if he stays healthy the rest of the way, he'll be around 29, 30. He should be fine. So I'll say I'm in.
Those strikeout numbers are going to be what catapults him there. Yeah. I mean, the 12 strikeouts that you just had with Milwaukee, I'm really interested. Yeah, I'm really interested to see what that's going to look like. But between the innings pitched by the end of the season and those strikeouts, I'll say I'm in on this. Jordan Montgomery's going to be tough competition, though.
You're ridiculous.
Could have been Carter. Could have had 2 Cy Youngs.
I could not be more in on this. This is what frontline pitching looks like, guys. He finished yesterday, to your point, Alex, 12 strikeouts on the day, which is the most by a Cardinal starter in the last 5 seasons.
So my phone was broken. I looked and I was like, damn, he's got 7?
He did this while on a pitches limit. He was at 90 yesterday. He told us yesterday after the game that he's got no more limit after this. He's good to go.
Yes.
He'll be at a full bore.
Uh-oh.
Here's the downside.
Yeah, uh-oh.
The last Cardinals starter credited with a loss in a performance in which they had at least 12 strikeouts was Adam Wainwright in 2010. It had been 14 years since a Cardinal starter struck out at least 12 batters and took the L. Sonny Gray did that yesterday.
So Sonny knows what it's like.
There are exactly 0 other pitchers not named Waino in that start in 2010 or Sonny yesterday with such a loss.
Yeah, well, it's because no starting pitcher is able to do that.
12 strikeouts, a loss for the Cardinals in the last 20 years. Waino did it once. Sonny Gray did it yesterday. Rough luck for him, man. I'm in. I think he's a top 5 Cy Young candidate. Alex?
Guys, in or out, if the Blues don't hire Drew Bannister, their next head coach is currently coaching in the playoffs.
Ooh.
Now, if you saw this, David Carl, the one that's rumored with the University of Denver, he was on Spit and Chicklets podcast, and he said very bluntly, I'm young, I have a family. If I take the jump to the NHL, it is going to be going to a favorable place on my terms.
St. Louis.
No.
You heard the part at the end, my terms, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's essentially a no-move clause he just said.
Yeah, Army doesn't like those.
No, he said in the press conference when you were gone, he's fine with them.
Yeah, I heard. I laughed out loud in my car.
I would say this is a pretty good situation for a young coach right now.
I think what he means is he wants to know that there's some security there.
Yeah, and I would say this is a really good job for that. Really? Because you're not expected to win at a meaningful level right away.
Yeah, but boy, when you're ready to win, and if it's not looking good, you are going to be on the chopping block.
Anywhere. Like any team in the NHL.
Not in Denver. At school where he's at.
But you're saying, he said if he makes the jump.
Yeah.
So if he's planning to make the jump to the NHL, and we don't know, but there are not very many situations that I would say have more stability than what you would have right now for at least the next 3 years in St. Louis. Am I wrong on that? Am I misreading it?
No, I read this, and you might just be reading it differently than I read this as, in his eyes, he's thinking, let's say a team gets bounced let's say Toronto gets bounced in the first round, and they're like, all right, well, we need a different head coach. That, to me, is more of a favorable situation for a David Carl, because I'm going to a team that's ready to compete. I feel like I've got the talents, and I can go right there.
Interesting, because I would read it differently. A, I don't think Toronto would hire him, and B, because I think they would want somebody that's more proven, and B, if I'm him and I go in and I don't have success right away, I'm getting fired potentially in year 1. They could make the move mid-season where they're like, this isn't working, we need to find a guy that will, because we're searching for possible answers at all turns.
Yeah. Comes down to, I guess, how you label favorable for him.
Totally fair, and I don't know how he views that. Maybe he's saying, I want to win a cup right away, otherwise I'm not moving to the NHL, in which case I don't think he's moving to the NHL. If I'm him, I'm looking at the situation and thinking to myself, I like it. And that's why I'm saying no. That's why I'm saying I'm out on what you said, Alex. I don't think that their next coach is currently playing. I think it's probably either the Denver guy or Drew Bannister, potentially.
I would say I'm going to say I'm in, just based on hearing Army talk at the end of season stuff. It sure sounded like there's somebody that they have in mind. And maybe they don't end up getting bounced in the first round, and then that all goes to crap, and they have to pivot to Carl or somebody else. But I think they have a target in mind from some playoff team that they really want to go after if he gets fired. So I'd say I'm in on this.
I've got a quick piece of news here for you guys.
Oh, baby.
From the NFL.
Oh, boy.
Former Jets starting quarterback Zach Wilson is on the move.
He's going back to college?
Where he's going.
Oh, God. Please don't be the Rams.
They got their backup.
Broncos. The Denver Broncos have traded for Zach Wilson. It's a late-round pick swap. It's basically nothing. In or out, Zach Wilson will start at least one game for the Broncos this year.
Out. Don't they already have a backup quarterback?
They're all backups in Denver.
Well, I guess that's true. Well, now we got another one. I'm out. I don't think he starts.
I'm in, and I hope so, because that would be fantastic from Sean Payton to
Their
be the
starting
savior.
quarterback is Jarrett Stidham.
Sean Payton would cut this guy so fast after one game.
I'm in. I think he absolutely starts a game for them this year, 100%.
I wonder if this is a sign that they can't move up.
It's possible.
I thought that they were one of those teams to keep an eye on because there's been reports today that the Patriots are looking to move 3, or at least listening to it. We've heard Arizona could be a team that could look to move from 4. I wonder if this is a sign that Denver's like, man, we're not going to be able to move up. J.J. McCartney's not going to be there in our draft spot. Let's just go get a stopgap that we know is going to suck, but at least we'll have a high first-round pick next year. So, Zach Wilson, come on down. Let's ride. But, man, this is going to be perfect because I'm saying he will start a game, and Sean Payton, who is the savior for Denver, is going to be on a hot seat by the end of next season.
T-Bone, what do you got for us today?
Guys, in or out, Mason Wynn has a brighter future than Jordan Walker as of today.
As of today, I'd say in.
I'm still out. I think Jordan Walker has MVP potential, and I think Mason Wynn has all-star potential. I think Mason Wynn has a chance to make the all-star game this year.
Maybe win a gold glove, like someone said.
I think it's possible, yeah. His defensive metrics are not something that will help him because when you look at the numbers, it looks bad. You guys watch the baseball games. He's good. He's good defensively.
Yeah.
I think Jordan Walker... I think we underestimate how freaking hard it is to be a good player, good hitter immediately upon your arrival at the age of 21 years old, dude. And he did that last year. This guy was above league average offensively at 20. And this year it's gone south, no doubt about it. I think he's going to be a really good player for them. I think he's got MVP potential, like in that kind of a category. So I'm out. I think Jordan Walker is still the guy with higher upside. You just don't see bodies like that move like that and hit like that. It just doesn't happen.
I would say I'm out, but I am waning more than I have ever before. And it goes back to, I said this from day one from Nolan Gorman going into the first full season for him. I felt really confident in his first full year that he was going to be at least a solid player for the Cardinals. Why? Because when he got called up in, 2022, you saw him kind of go through some struggles and then kind of figure it out. And then he'd go through some struggles and he'd kind of adjust. And you could kind of see the ebbs and flows, which I expect. And for Jordan Walker, I'm not seeing that adjustment. I'm not seeing the adjustment from the rookie season of, hey, you're hitting the ball on the ground. And the Cardinals aren't saying, like, hit fly balls. They're saying hit line drives. Correct. Is what they're saying. That's what they mean by lift. You're not seeing that. There is an off season to get this figured out. And there's a lot of the same issues. And I understand you're 100% right. It is super hard. I can tell you I'd be 0 for 130 right now. But I'm not seeing the adjustments that I want to see from a top-level prospect, and it's why I'm starting to wane a little bit. I'm starting to get a little more concerned on his development as a whole, and we talked about, if Goldschmidt doesn't end up hitting, and that one's not on the Cardinals, that one's more of a, holy crap, it just went for Goldschmidt real quickly. They put all their eggs in the wrong basket for their offense. I'm starting to question if you should be building around Jordan Walker for the long term.
I put the in on this one just because I'm seeing Mason Wynn figure out how to adjust mentally, and we're seeing back-to-back seasons where he loses it, and he loses it quick, and that is a hard thing to just figure out.
I mean, to be fair, though, like Mason Wynn was worse last year offensively than what we've seen so far this year from Jordan Walker.
I get it, but I mean...
And again,
he's 22 years old, yeah. In an off season.
But it could change. Like, this is the thing that's tough. Is like, we're seeing the beginning of Mason Wynn's season.
But T-Bone said as it stands now.
I'm not saying Mason Wynn's going to hit 300 all season. What I'm saying is I've at least seen where he's made the adjustment, and we'll see what pitching's going to adjust to Mason Wynn. Once the book gets out on Wynn here.
we need to wait for that. Like, that's why I don't want to get out over our skis, because I saw it last year very similar for Jordan Walker. A rough start, similar to what we saw from last year. Mason Wynn, rough start for him last season. If you just carried that over as basically like the first 30 games of his career and then added this onto it, it'd be really similar to what we saw last year. Jordan Walker, rough start, and then kind of found his footing in the major league level. It took some time, though, in between where he took his breath, went down to AAA, figured it out offensively. Mason Wynn, off-season, take a breath, figured it out offensively. I still am a believer that Jordan Walker will get this thing turned around. I think we are. I think we all got to have a collective, like, ooh, sob.
Don't you tell me to breathe.
Or it's going to be okay. And I think he'll be all right. And I think we are also getting out a little bit over our skis on what we've seen from Wynn. It's super exciting, dude. I think he's going to be a really good baseball player. Do I think he's going to hit 315 this year? No. I think he's going to end up going through some significant slumps where it looks for a 20-game sample probably pretty similar, honestly, to what it looks right now from the first 20 games with Jordan Walker at the plate. I think we'll get there, and the hope is that he responds and he ends up coming out of it.
And I don't want to push back like I'm just trying to say, like, Walker stinks. He's not going to. The one pushback I still do have, though, is it'd be one thing if it was something different. You know, this is the same issue as last year. The hip is leaking. The ball is on the ground too much. And it's right back to the bad habit that you saw last year when he was up originally, where, to your point, yeah, they set him down. He figured it out. He came up, and he was awesome in September. Like, he was their best hitter offensively. But now that we're back into that, we had an off season to where it is, okay, let's see if we can build on this. I understand he's going to go through struggles. I'm not trying to push back on, like, he should never struggle as a major league hitter. That's going to happen. The problem is it's reverting back to the old habit that happened last year that got him sent back down and is on the verge of sending him back down again.
And remember, when he was sent down, his dad did the article, I think it was with either Hockman or Fredrickson on the Post, talking about, like he went through a pretty dark period there for a while of how, like, down he got about being sent down. That's... And 21 years old, but I look at Mason Wynn and 22 years old, and one bad stretch of 3 months, he figured it out and had a lot more confidence in it. And I think when you're trying to figure that out, that takes an impact on your development.
I've given my thoughts on it. All right, coming up next, SLU basketball. Relevant again. I told my buddy yesterday, I think I want to get some SLU basketball tickets. Are you guys in on that? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK to tell you about my friends over at Victory Men's Health. Did you wake up this morning and think to yourself, man, I just don't have the same energy that I once did? Maybe you were a little moody. You woke up, you thought, I should probably go get my testosterone checked. Well, the place to do so is at Victory Men's Health. And it's not just testosterone over there. They can help you with a number of different potential health benefits for you, whether that's weight loss. You've been looking to shed a few pounds. They can help you with that over there. Go over there. They'll check your micronutrients with their testing that they do. And then when they get those results back, based on the science behind it, the data behind it, they will help you become the best version of yourself by unlocking your inner champion. The place to go is Victory Men's Health. And you could do so at one of their 4 great locations across the St. Louis area: O'Fallon, Illinois, O'Fallon, Missouri, Town and Country, and in Sunset Hills. That 4th location in Sunset Hills is the newest one, opened up just about 6 weeks ago. So check them out today. One of those 4 great locations, it's Victory Men's Health, and at victorymenshealth.com.
Terry Hydrick here, the Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals back in action tonight as they start a 3-game set against the Arizona Diamondbacks. 6:45 will be first pitch. Brandon Pfaadt will get the start for Arizona, and Lance Lynn will be on the mound for the St. Louis Cardinals. The Sports Update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
The man that goes by the nickname Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, or Larry Nerd, or Steph Blurry, any of those. He is now a SLU Billiken with Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, when you look at what they're building right now at SLU basketball, I think I am a pretty good proxy for this in that I saw the news yesterday that they were getting one of the most entertaining basketball players in the college side of things. And I said to one of my buddies, hey, let's go ahead and get some SLU basketball tickets. Because that sold me. That sold me that this is going to be different. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be a bit of a revitalization. They played a really fun brand of basketball at Indiana State. And now you have their head coach. And the guy that made that brand of basketball possible was Robbie Avila, who is now the newest member of the SLU Billikens. Alex, when you saw this news yesterday, when you have seen what they've been able to add to the roster so far via the portal and everything, what is your level of intrigue right now for SLU basketball?
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being most excited, like 9. I mean, when they made that move, which I kind of expected, like once Shirts left and then it was like, oh, what's his Kareem Abdul-Jabbar entered the portal, and it's like, okay, cool. So why don't we just announce that he's going to SLU? We know what's going to happen. But I mean, like That kid, I felt like, was talked about more than anybody else in the actual bracket tournament that was taking place. And you get Schertz, who I think already won over the media just with his first press conference. And then when you're bringing in his two, which I know the other one just agreed to join SLU as well with the transfer portal, you lost a couple of players when Travis Ford left, and it's like, oh, man, is this going to be like the downfall of SLU? And then you regain that quickly with two really exciting players and good players. So, yeah, I would put that at like a 9 in terms of excitement just off of two guys committing to one team.
I'm more excited about SLU basketball than I am Illini basketball right now because they bring in a guy in Robbie Avila who was really good last season, has an awesome nickname, and I truly believe would have been the face of college basketball had Indiana State been put in the tournament.
Agreed.
I really believe that. I don't know if they would have gone far, but there would have been all the stories about him. He would became the face of basketball because he's already well known, and they didn't even make the NCAA tournament. They just won the NIT or got to the NIT championship. So I think this is massive for SLU, and I think it is spot on to be excited and thrilled by what you're seeing from Josh Schertz and what he's bringing to the program because he had success at Indiana State with basically what he's bringing over now. I mean, you're basically going to watch Indiana State 2.0 at SLU next year. But they had success, probably got snubbed from the NCAA tournament. And if you had success in that conference with Indiana State, it's not like the Atlantic 10's the Big Ten, It's not like you're making this massive jump to a Power 5. The A10 is maybe slightly better. There's real opportunity here for SLU to be a team that should be back near the top of the A10 and a team that probably should be at least in consideration. I'm not going to call them the favorites, but in consideration to be a team that can be the winners of the A10 this upcoming season, which is exciting.
We've seen this. Like, teams can overhaul their roster overnight with new coaches now because of the transfer portal, because of NIL, because of the opportunities that exist. Like, SLU was not a good basketball team last year, and overnight they can overhaul like 7-8 spots in their roster. And of the 7 guys that are meaningful in your rotation, you could have like 4 or 5 new guys in that rotation starting as soon as next season. Gibson Jimerson going to be back for his 25th year of eligibility at SLU University. So I'm excited. Somebody on the text line said, guys, so are you a complete bandwagoner then? Is that what you're saying? Yes, absolutely.
Especially for college basketball.
100%. Now, I am a Mizzou basketball fan through and through. But do I, generally speaking, get super excited? Have I gotten super excited about SLU basketball under Travis Ford in recent years? No. I have been a skeptic since like year 2 of Travis Ford at SLU. I've never really been a huge fan over the last 3 or 4 seasons of what he's doing offensively. I haven't seen where the ceiling is going to come from because I saw it at Oklahoma State. It wasn't good enough with him there, and it was better talent there for the most part than what he had over the last few seasons at SLU. I didn't see it. Wasn't for me. This version of SLU basketball, though, I can see how this works. I can understand how this ends up capturing the minds, the hearts, the imaginations of SLU basketball fans. Hell, even of people that live in the St. Louis area that aren't super excited about SLU basketball, generally speaking. Like, they don't have a propensity to just go out to Chaffetz to support their team when the basketball season turns around. Now, the casual fan, just a sports fan in the St. Louis area that's going to Battlehawks games just because they're fun, entertaining, good time, that version of fan can now decide to do the same thing for SLU basketball. That's what they've been missing. I think this is I said it at the time, I thought it was a home run hire for them. And now that you're starting to see some of what's coming together with the roster, I cannot speak highly enough of what they are building. We'll see if it works. Who knows? This stuff can go either way, but I am inclined to believe that it will.
That's what I was going to say, too, is enjoy this upcoming season while it lasts, because I thought that it was a really good hire by SLU because I knew they were going to bring in Robbie Avila. Mm-hmm. I knew that he was going to follow the coach. So you bring in a team that had success in Indiana State with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You bring him in here to SLU. Okay, there's the home run hit. Boom, you're already going to win over the fan base, and you should be, to your point, fun and have a ceiling next year. What he does after this Robbie Avila is gone, that will be what you determine on how good the hire actually was. But, hey, at least in year 1, he's making it exciting just like Dennis Gates did for Missouri when he got in.
Isn't that what Mizzou did when they hired Konzo? Because they realized that, like, we're going to get Michael Porter Jr. with this hire also.
So it was a little bit different in terms of the timing because Romar was fired after Konzo was hired.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a 1-for-1, but like Konzo wasn't the one that had the relationship necessarily.
They hired his dad to be the, or not his dad.
He was just coming home to Colombia.
Yeah.
Like, Romar was the godfather or whatever. He's super tight with the Porter family. And so they were all going to go play for Lorenzo. Romar, I think it was at Washington at the time, if I'm not mistaken. And when he was fired, it changed their plans. It was so late in the process that they had just decided to stay in Colombia instead. So it's a little bit different there, but
the excitement is still over like one player turning your excitement around for a team, because at the time before Michael Porter Jr., it was like, okay, cool, but this team sucks.
It's more similar probably to what Dennis Gates was able to do, because Dennis Gates was able to bring a couple of players over from what he had at Cleveland State, where they were successful there. Demoy Hodge was one of them, and then he adds just a piece to Kobe Brown's game, and you saw it with the development of his three-point shot, and you're like, oh, damn, this came together so much faster than anybody could have possibly expected. And that's something that excites me about Schertz, that he has shown an ability to develop players within his system. So yes, year one, you get the microwave effect of him bringing over his players that had worked for him at Indiana State. Year two, year three, year four, you're hoping that he's able to develop and identify the talent that he did at Indiana State, and he can now have the effect long-term that he did while he was there. So you get to play both games, but that can also go the other way, as we saw this year at Mizzou, where year one was super exciting, and then you have a little bit of a step back, and then you hope year three goes forward again. But year one, going to be fun, man. I'm super excited about it, and there's every reason to be so. I'm also excited about Mizzou basketball, because they are doing a hell of a job in the transfer portal.
No, I'm excited about that, too.
What?
Mark Mitchell, dude, that's a really big get. One of the top 5 players in the transfer portal.
Well, last time we learned last year's Gates was able to identify what is talent that he was able to bring over from Cleveland State. After that, no.
T-Bone, your team's the one that has some problems right now.
It's a 5-star recruit that they just got from Duke, and you're like, not a good talent evaluator?
If he's leaving Duke, he's not talented.
Your coach is running off some of your best players, so good luck with that one. Coming up next, BK and Ferrario Rewind here on 101 ESPN.
If you're like me, you've been going through the up and down with your air, your heat, back and forth. And look, if you're like me also, and you have an old unit, you do that. You turn the air off, you turn the heat on, and you turn the heat off, you turn the air on, and you're thinking, my old unit is not going to make it through this. But luckily, I use Classic Air Care because they take care of my HVAC system. I have them scheduled to come out this week, the maintenance program to tune it up for the upcoming, where I click the air on and it stays on. And I've been doing this for the last 6 years since I've purchased a home. Classic Air Care has been coming out, taking care of my old HVAC unit. And look, my first house, it was a 26-year-old unit. This house, a 23-year-old unit, and I have yet to buy a new HVAC system because they take such good care of it. But I know it's going to happen sooner or later, and I use a company, I use professional technicians that I trust. They walk me through everything that is going to go through it. So make sure you're using somebody you trust when it comes to your HVAC system, and that is Classic Air Care. They've been making people comfortable since 1926. They have financing available to you if you're in the market for a new HVAC system. Give them a call or check them out online today. Classic Air Care, classicaircare.com.
feel like today's been a generally down kind of a show. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. If you missed any of it and you want to relive it, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com. The free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Alex, to pick us back up before the fast lane gets in here, I think they're going to be generally positive today. There's a lot to talk about, a lot of positives. They'll break down the Battlehawks game for you later on. City had, I know it was a draw, but it's on the road, so you get a point out of that. You got to feel happy about that, I would imagine. Get 3 goals in it.
Doing a lot of draws, huh?
All this you're right here, folks, is what me and Alex wanted to talk about in the show meeting today.
It's like
and then he was like, no, we must be negative.
The Blues' next coach in Boston right now, he's hopefully going to be on the losing side of things as we continue along.
Well, he's in Boston because he's coaching the Maple Leafs.
Touche.
Sheldon Keefe, because he's available after this season.
Who is the guy tonight? If one player, if I told you, guarantee it, lock it in, there's going to be one guy that gets on track offensively tonight. Who is it for you going up against Brandon Pfaadt?
Now you're stealing the fast lanes game?
What do you mean?
Don't they do a beat the streak where you pick one guy?
Picking the home run guy?
Pick the home run hitter?
No. I'm saying one of their guys that is struggling right now is going to get it fixed tonight. Who is it?
I'll go with Jordan Walker.
Hell yeah, brother.
I'll go with Jordan Walker. He's about to turn it around.
I'll go Gorman. I think Gorman could get a slider that hangs in the zone. That's why I'm a little worried about Walker tonight.
I don't think Walker's not even going to be in the lineup.
Gets a slider that hangs in the zone, crushes it, and that's the swing that gets him back on track.
Brendan Donovan.
That you're about to go Goldie.
Brendan Donovan will be the guy that gets back on track. No. I know his slump's a little different than the other guys.
It's sad none of us went with Goldie.
Yeah, kind of.
Donnie and 2 at-bats against him is 2 for 2. I think this is the night that he gets back on
As the
track.
texter pointed out earlier, this is where MVP status for Paul Goldschmidt takes off.
It is. I mean, 2 years ago, if we're going to go with that as the comparison, this is exactly the time when he started to heat up. So fingers crossed that will take place again. On the mound for the Cardinals tonight, you do have Lance Lynn. He's been good so far this year. You guys think that continues?
I'll say yeah. Arizona's kind of scuffling along right now.
Does Cardinals win?
No.
Come on, man.
This
Can't score runs.
This is what's kind of frustrating is like they've played these teams. Milwaukee was playing well, but they met Arizona and Arizona. I was like, okay, both teams are scuffling. Can they be the one that finally breaks out?
Cardinals are winning 2 out of 3 here.
Stop it. No, they're not.
You know better than that.
They're going to do it. They're going to win the next 2.
They're gonna go
We know
1
they're going to get
5.
shut down by Montgomery.
You said they were sweeping the Oakland A's.
That never happened. I definitely didn't say that.
You forgot about Pete Blackburn on the other side.
Words.
Pete.
Doesn't matter. It's all the
same guy.
Pete would have shut him down, too. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow, hopefully under better circumstances here on BK and Ferrario Fastlane coming up next.